Hey everybody, this month's episode of the Rahdo Talks Through podcast is brought to you by Honeybuzz Fall Flavors, which is available for pre-order now in regular and deluxe editions. And I have talked about Honeybuzz in the past. I even did a run-through. This is a fantastic, crunchy worker placement game about honeybees collecting the pollen, making the honey, and selling it to all the woodland critters. But this new expansion adds so much leaves and fruit that give you a lot more flexibility and variety, but more importantly, what really gets me excited are the modules that let you sacrifice, or I should say retire your worker bees to be able to lock in extra objective victory points. This is one of my favorite mechanisms of all time, and I cannot wait to try it in a game that was already absolutely fantastic. Like I said, it is available for pre-order now at honeybuzz.rahdo.com. There's a regular and a deluxe edition, and it looks cool. And folks, let's get going. Happy New Year. It's the first episode of 2023, and oh my gosh, it's a big one. You folks really submitted a ton of questions to email address questions@rahdo.com. Keep them coming, please. And I think this episode's like 3 hours long, the longest one we've had in a while. And I think this is the biggest collection of game-related questions that Jen was able to weigh in on. So that was a lot of fun. So like always, first I'm going to do some game-related questions Jen didn't care about. Then Jen will be here for a whole bunch more game stuff. And then we will conclude with our personal Q&A as always. And hopefully you enjoy, folks. Sit back, get comfortable, and we'll get going right after this. Okay, folks, got a bunch of good questions this month. Thank you. But as always, keep those questions coming. You know what to do. But without further ado, let's hit all the game stuff. And after I'm done with these, then Jen will join me for some more game stuff, and then we'll do the personal Q&A. So starting with a question from Alex A., because I cannot say Alex A's name because it'll wake up my personal digital assistant. Alex A said I could use her boyfriend's name, Dave, but she wrote it, so I'm saying Alexa says, have you ever considered getting some sort of paid game design consultancy since you always have insightful feedback for publishers and designers? Yes, Alexa, I have. In fact, I've had one semi-official job offer. I don't know if I should, how about that? A few years ago, I was sitting down with Ryan Lockett of Red Raven Games and giving him a lot of feedback on Sleeping Gods before it went live on Kickstarter, and saying, and because Sleeping Gods originally was going to be a solo and 2-player game only, and Ryan couldn't quite crack the code of how to make it work for more players and stuff. And so I gave him some feedback, and he loved it, and Suzanne Sheldon and I sat down and played, and he took notes, and after all that was over, I think the next day he came over to me and said, this is at a board game convention, hey, if you ever want to do this, what you just did for me yesterday professionally, let me know. And I'm like, oh, Red Raven Games is one of my favorite publishers. So I don't know if that's still a standing offer, but I've got that going for me. And also another one time I was sitting down with John D. Clare, the designer, and John Zinzer of AEG, and we were playing some prototype of one of John's games. And John said to John, the designer said to AEG president, you should really hire him to be a developer for all the 2-player content because he gets it right every time, and it would make all your games better. And John Zinzer said, interesting, and stroked his chin and all that. Now, if I recall correctly, I think John Zinzer has now stepped down. So maybe I don't have that going for me anymore. But it's something that might happen. I might consider doing somewhere down the road if I ever completely stop doing Rahdo runs through. But it would feel kind of weird being an actual game developer and a game videographer at the same time. It feels like that's maybe like, a line, you shouldn't cross those streams. But honestly, I think I would really enjoy it. I think I'd have a great time doing it, and I think I'd be really good at it too. So Alexa, it might be something I do somewhere in the future. Watch this space. Ben says, you said that Isle of Cats Explore and Draw now replaces Isle of Cats. Well, I'm keeping both, for the record. Isle of Cats is still great, but if I could only keep one, I would keep Explore and Draw. Ben continues, is that including the expansions for the original Isle of Cats? If so, do you feel the expansions improve the standard game or detract from it? Don't recall them ever being mentioned in a roundup or a preview video, so maybe I missed it. You didn't miss it. I have not played Isle of Cats with the expansions, and that's definitely on my list of things to do. I've got at any given time anywhere between 50 and 100 games in my queue that I have to play, and that includes expansions, and I definitely want to give them a go because they look great. Who knows? Maybe those would push Isle of Cats back up above Explore and Draw, the roll and write version of Isle of Cats. But I have not played them, so I cannot say, but I really, really want to. They seem very, very cool. Okay, Cameron has a few questions. Question number 1. Why did I do a top 44 games for 2023? Was there a significant reason for the number? Or was it simply the number remaining once you eliminated all my normal caveats? It's that. Obviously I did my top 10, but then I ranked 44 or 34 more games, so I had a top 44, which I'm sure everybody's seen. I mean, if you check out the podcast, I'm sure you must not have missed my top 44 game preliminary list for 2024. But no, it was totally random. And in fact, it didn't even occur to me, but it wasn't until I started recording that it occurred to me, oh, hey, my top 44 games for the year 2022, 44. Hey, that's kind of a nice little bit of symmetry, but it was totally random. And of course, I'm still going to keep playing 2022 games. I've got a bunch more that might make their way in. Which is why I will do a follow-up. And it won't be a 44 anymore, I think, by the time we get to April and I do my follow-up for the best of 2022. Second question from Cameron. Have I heard about Earthborn Rangers, due to be delivered in 2023 to backers? Do you have initial comments? Well, he sent me a link, and I think I do. Because actually, I've already talked about this, Earthborn Rangers, but I'll bring it back on screen for people who are watching instead of listening. I admit, this looks very, very cool to me because it is a deck builder from a whole bunch of designers, including the Sadlers, that, if I recall correctly, really has a wonderful focus on personality. That your deck represents everything, that doesn't just represent my strengths and weaknesses, but it represents my life story of my character as I play through a campaign game and these massive events become cards that I will call upon. I love that idea. The gameplay looks very sharp. It looks very, very pretty. The mechanisms, I think everything about it looks great. And I've already talked about it at length, so you just got a sneak peek for my January Rahdo Ramble, which is if you back at the Rambler level on Patreon, or the more Rahdo level on YouTube, you saw me talk about 50 additional games for 2023 that I think look great, including Earthborn Rangers. I'm excited about it. I hope they send me a review copy because I'd love to check it out. Right, okay, let's go back to the questions. You had some context. You mentioned Revive and Shapers of Gaia in my preliminary top 10. Earthborn Rangers seems very similar to those, plays similar to Arkham Horror, the living card game. Players aren't required to go kill everything. Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a lot that Earthborn Rangers looks really, really good to me. I recalled you liked the Arkham Horror card game design, but not the setting. The time commitment would prevent... like I said, I do want to deep dive into this one. Who were you asking? Cameron. I do look forward to giving it a try. Okay, next up, David says, I've been watching your run-throughs for years. I've come to develop a good understanding of the things you like and don't like. Puzzly decisions, randomized setup, imperfect communication, altruistic actions, disliking roll to resolve, board traversal, kicking down sandcastles, dueling wizards. Because your preferences, Rahdo, are so transparent, it's easy for me to understand your rankings and final thoughts. It's easy for me to pick out your recommendations based on the Venn diagram of my interest to yours. However, I don't have so much of a connection with your contributors yet. Would you break down your contributors, Shay, Ruel, Kimberly, Amy and Maggie, Grant, in a similar fashion for their likes and dislikes, from your own understanding, of course? See, that's going to be hard. I am such a myopic, pigeonholed gamer because I really do. I mean, all the Venn diagrams, they just make. Again, myopic. There's no better term for it. Everybody else on my channel are true omni gamers. They love everything. They love fighting. They love Euros. They love narrative adventure games. They love party games. They all love everything. I am the only one. And that's one of the reasons I wanted more people on my channel, so that they could actually talk and demonstrate cool stuff that I would never cover in a million years. Now, Shay, one of the main reasons he came on is because if you look at his own channel, RTFM, he really has a penchant for big Twilight Imperium 4 is his favorite game of all time. And his most popular game video of all time was his How to Play. It's the most highly regarded How to Play for Twilight Imperium 4 there is in the internet. And so he likes that kind of thing. Big, bombastic, heavy games with a lot of moving pieces, a lot of Ameritrash style stuff merged with Euro-y things. But the interesting thing is, as he's been doing for now a few years on my channel more and more stuff, I've been seeing him getting drawn more and more and more to Euro stuff, the kind of stuff I like. It used to be, hey, Shay's always going to have all these other ones to cover, but more and more he kind of tends to cover the things that I would tend to cover, because I don't know if, I'm sure I'm not rubbing off on him or anything like that, but Kimberly is such an odd duck. She loves everything too. She really loves narrative gameplay. She really loves heavy Euros. Really quite a bit, but she loves party games too. Kimberly is a pure, if you look, you can go to Tabletop Tolson, and she's done like her top 20 of all time with her and her husband. And if you look at it, it's just like, oh, it's just all over the place. Same for Ruel. If anything, I would say Ruel probably doesn't go in for the super heavy stuff quite so much. He looks for more kind of gateway stuff he can play with his wife. But his wife likes crunchy goodness too. But yeah, I think he's maybe a little bit more and certainly Grant is, if there's anybody who I would pigeonhole besides me, it is Grant. Grant does not go for heavy games at all. It's very rare he finds one he likes. He loves party games. He designs party games. He's had a very successful first one called Curmudgeon, and his second one is about to be published, and he says it's even better. So he is Grant, I would say his tastes are kind of closest to Shut Up and Sit Down, in that they're all about, games to bring people together around the table and just have fun experiences. And yeah, I'll dabble in more complex stuff or Euro-y stuff, but really, where's the joy and the fun? That's all I can give you though, but really, unlike me, all of them have expressed love for all kinds of things. The only one I would say is maybe limiting is Grant, I think, really stays away from heavy Euro stuff, but he likes light Euro stuff. He likes, atmospheric Euro stuff too. Okay, Gerald notes that Marvel Champions has plummeted in my rankings. I've mentioned my dislike of some of the expansions. Since expansions impact a game's rating for me, normally pushing them up, that's true, would getting rid of some or all Marvel Champion expansions slingshot it back into the ratings? No, because you have to understand, Marvel Champions is a living card game. It's if I were to judge, when I put the original Marvel Champions, the starter box, in my literal top 10 games of all time, it was both because of the content in that box and because of the promise that the game makes to continue to provide new content of that quality moving forward. And if they had been able to stick to what makes their game truly unique and special, it would probably still be in my top 10 games of all time. But I don't think you can judge a living card game like Arkham Horror, the living card game, or Magic the Gathering off of just a small handful of starter decks, which is what you'd be doing if you were just judging Marvel Champions. Marvel Champions, out of the box, was one of the 10 best experiences I've ever had playing games. And it almost immediately started going downhill as the developers, with successive expansion after expansion after expansion, kept moving farther and farther and farther and farther away from what makes the game special. So, when it became obvious to me with the most because I've actually stopped with the Mutant Genesis stuff, because I was like, oh my gosh, the stuff here, no, I'm not even going to play this. It had gone so far from the promise it originally had that I said, okay, I'm gonna stop collecting it. And my ranking of it is where I would have ranked it based on just the starter box. Because the starter box, if no expansion existed, is kind of like Dominion with no expansions. It's great, but it has a really hard half-life. You will only get so much. It needs more content to survive. And if the content could have even held a shadow to how good the original, what came in the box was, then, but anyway, that's why it has fallen, because I am now ranking it based on only the starter box, effectively. Because I used to rank it based on the promise of getting more of that, and it has failed to deliver on that promise. So that's Marvel Champions. I see other channels mention turning on Klingon subtitles for goofs. Is that a standard thing, or did you start that trend? And what about deaf people in other countries that don't read English, but do read Klingon? I created that, yes. What happened was, YouTube used to have an awesome system called annotations, where if I made a mistake, I could add it, or Paulo could add an annotation, and it would pop up. Now, there were problems with the annotation system. One, they only appeared on browser. They did not appear on TVs. They did not appear on smartphones. Another one is a lot of bad actors. Another problem was the annotations could be used to put links, so that if you clicked on an annotation, you'd go to a website. And so what happened? A lot of bad actors started putting full screen annotations that were invisible. You couldn't see them, and people would accidentally click on them, and it would take them to a virus-strewn website. And that was bad. So YouTube killed it. Rather than fixing it, because why didn't they just fix it? It was one of the best systems they've ever had. To be fair, YouTube kills awesome functionality all the frickin' time. But this one really killed for channels like mine, where I need to have a way to tell you, hey, I made a mistake. And a lot of other channels do it too, as you say. And a lot of us were using annotations, and then just one day they were just gone instantly. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? Is this literally the end of my channel? Because I'm still going to make mistakes, and people never read show notes ever, no matter how much you tell them to do it. Have you read the show notes for this video? I bet you haven't, if you're on YouTube. And then it occurred to me, oh, subtitles. Okay, perfect. So I had to decide. And I tell me if I was right or wrong down in the comments, folks, if you're not listening to this as a podcast. I could have chosen, I figured, okay, it's got to be subtitles for a language that doesn't exist. Because I'm not going to do Cameroon or French or something like that, because who knows, maybe someday. I mean, a lot of my videos have Korean and Japanese subtitles and Russian subtitles and German subtitles that people have submitted and I've turned on. But there's never going to be any Klingon. And I thought, so I was going to do Klingon or Esperanto. And I'm really curious, should I have done Esperanto? At the end of the day, telling everybody, if you turn on your Esperanto subtitles, I didn't think anybody would even know what I was talking about, because most people don't know what Esperanto is. So I went with Klingon, and almost immediately, John Gets Games and Tom Heath, Slicker Drips, they reached out and said, oh my God, we were terrified. That's perfect. Do you mind if we do that? And I'm like, no, of course. Let's make this the thing. And so they both started doing it. And nowadays, it seems like half the channels out there do it now. But yeah, it came about out of necessity, because it's just absolutely ridiculous that they killed. I mean, annotations were so much better. I wish annotations were still here, but but anyway, you had another question, which is very good. And I'm glad you asked. Let me find a video with some subtitles. Or my channel. I just made Ottawa live today, right? Or Edouard, right. Uwe Rosenberg. Let me bring that up on screen. That just went live this morning. Okay. And I don't need to hear you. I need to see you. And, right. Okay. So, subtitles. Yeah, okay, cool. This will work. All right. So, coming back over to the view. And then don't worry, folks, where'd my browser go? And when you know, my phone just started ringing. What is happening? All right, there's the browser, and I don't know who that is, so they can leave a message. Whew, that was close. All right, so here's Edouard. And my ear keeps falling out of my ear. So, all you gotta do is just push the button and Klingon subtitles are on or off. Here we are at the beginning, and you can see, look, there it is. Paulo's opening line saying, hey, be sure to turn, if you notice any mistakes, let me know. And whatever mistakes there are, right? But what if you wanted to go to English, because you're literally deaf, because YouTube does a pretty good job of automatically generating subtitles. They do a really great job. There's something about my voice and my diction that makes them very rarely make mistakes. So what if you want to know about the goofs, but you need to be able to read this, or you're looking at one of my videos that has German subtitles or something like that? Almost nobody knows about this. And I need to make a video demonstrating this, but I'll demonstrate it now. On any video on YouTube, if you're in a browser, click the little dots, show transcript, and let me go on ahead and shrink this down a bit so you can see the transcript. Come on. And what happens is, hey, here's the video, here's the subtitles, and over here is a transcript of all those subtitles. And you can click the dots there and say, hey, where can you click? You can click over here and say, oh, I would like the transcript to be all of the goofs. So you can just see all of my goofs right there. Or you can say, oh, I'd like the transcript to be the English auto-generated, and then I'd like the goofs to appear on the actual video. And so I could switch back. So boom, now you're not going to be bothered with things, and when I make a mistake, it'll pop up here. But if you need to read along, you'll see that over here. It's freaking awesome, this transcript feature that nobody knows about. And that's why I really do need to make the time to let people know. Because it's really, really useful for the exact reason you bring up. So that's something. So I'm glad you asked, Gerald. But anyway, continuing on. Let me get back to the Word document. Okay. So next one, X-Men Mutant Insurrection. I find it plays great with 5 heroes. In this game, it seems easier to use 5 heroes, even solo, than playing 5-handed with Pandemic or any hero. Right, X-Men Resurrection, that was the one that's basically Elder Sign turned into X-Men co-op, right? I could see that. Yeah, I could see how if I was a game where I had to control 5 characters, I'd want to do it there. And it is certainly a game that benefits from having more than 2 or 1 or 2 characters. It's a bit like placing 5 workers in Feast for Odin. Quicker, actually. And even more similar to a game where you have 5 asymmetrical workers. Should you have given this an exception pass, and would you be more open-minded with similar game designs in the future? Oh, because you're referring to the fact that I have often mentioned that one of the things I do not like to do is play a game. Fury of Dracula is the go-to example for this, where, Fury of Dracula should be played by 5 players, with 1 player being Dracula and 4 other people being the 4 hunters. But what do they do in a 2-player? 1 player is Dracula, and 1 player has to control 4 hunters. And these hunters, each one of them, is incredibly complex. They all have their own hand of cards and special powers, and trying to keep them all straight is ridiculous. It is absurd. It is objectively bad design, in my opinion. Not subjectively, but objectively bad design. And so, that's the worst case example of it. But you're right, there are plenty of games where, hey, to be able to play 2-player, each player has to, all 4 characters are going to be there, and each player has to control 2. And I'm generally not a fan of that. I always tend to think it's a little lazy. It's interesting, I don't believe X-Men Mutant Resurrection even suggests this. Mutant Resurrection lets you play with only 2 people, and I respect them for that. But I can see you're right, it probably works great. And the thing is, yes, the closer it gets to being where, you know what, just controlling 1 character is kind of shallow. I kind of feel like I need to control 2 characters to actually have a deep experience. And it sounds like that's kind of what X-Men Mutant Resurrection gives you. And that's great. I got no problem with that. Especially because there's 2 reasons I dislike it. 1, it can just be bad design, like in the case of Fury of Dracula. Having 1 player control like 3 or 4 players worth of stuff and keep it all straight in their heads. It's absurd. It's a bad design. But the other reason is because I personally don't like the idea of feeling like, oh, I'm not that character. I am some general, armchair general, ordering all the characters to do. Like you said, that's what a worker placement game is. I'm not the workers. I'm the workers' boss. Now here's the deal. In X-Men Mutant Resurrection, it makes a lot more sense because I can pretend I'm Professor X. And then suddenly, oh, I am in the world. So that there have been games like Space Hulk Death Angel is a great example. If you're playing with less than 5 players, you have to control multiple squads of Marines, and that's fine because they say right from the get-go, the fiction of this game is you are not the Marines. You're that stupid, useless lieutenant in the van issuing orders while the Marines are out fighting the aliens. What was his name? Burke? No, that was the slimy corporate lawyer. But you know what I mean. So I think it works great there. So if you're going to do that, like you've made up your own house rule that sounds fantastic, work it into the fiction of the game. Tell me, hey, you can play as Professor X and control all of them. And I'm like, yeah, I'm on board, unless the other problem exists. So anyway, that's how that goes. That's how that shakes out for me. Moving on. Greg says, in episode 91, you talked about house rules for Wingspan with Nectar. That's the Oceana expansion. Can you explain what you would change with Oceana or Nectar in general? No, I won't, because it wasn't my idea, and I want to give credit where credit is due. So let's go to Board Game Geek. Oceania. Is that how you spell it? Yes, it is. All right, let's come back to the browser, and let's go to Wingspan Oceania, and then let's go to the forums. There we go. And, all right, I need to go to, not all board game forums, I need to go to variants. Well, it is hard to do Board Game Geek. There it is. Okay, there we go. Variants. And it's going to be in here. It's Let's see, I think if you actually sort this by hotness. All right, no, it's not that one. But I bet you it's the most popular one. Give me a compact view. How can I sort this? Top. There you go. Yes, it is the top with 3 pages of responses, 77 thumbs, the highest ranked variant on Board Game Geek. If you go to the Oceania forums variants, Nectar Not Wild, the house rule you've been waiting for. Because you're right. I mean, I think they're fine, but they make the game way too easy, and the whole game becomes about collecting nectar, and they so supplant everything else. And Jake Conde here, he posted this, yeah, if you just want to scroll down to the bottom, he gives all his logic, all his reasoning, but the variant is incredibly simple. Basically, don't change anything about the nectar other than it does not count as a wild resource. So it still has a lot of functions. There are things that require nectar. Nectar can still use as a stand for other things. You can combine nectar, all that stuff. It just doesn't also become a wild resource, which is the thing that makes it so incredibly powerful that everything else falls away. It's as simple as that. Although he goes into a bit more detail, and there's 3 pages of people discussing it, and it's a fantastic thread, and I recommend it to anybody. Nectar Not Wild, the house rule you've been waiting for, from Jake Conde. Did a great job. Good job, Jake. That's how you'll find it, Greg. I didn't fish for you. I taught you how to fish, hopefully. So, moving on, we've got Matthew, who says, 1. I've considered doing a Rahdo talks through for other contributors. Have I considered doing a Rahdo talks through for other contributors? Oh, bringing other contributors onto the podcast. I'm thinking something along the lines of you advertise, that this month Ruel will be on the podcast, and everyone should submit questions for Ruel. You could use these months to lighten your load while traveling, or collect enough questions for when you have a light month. It's a good idea. It's certainly something I do. Here's the thing. I've actually started doing combined final thoughts with them. I'm actually going to be doing one with Shay this week for Empire's End. And that does prove to be so hard to schedule. Oh, it's hard. But I see what you're saying is something different. I would just they would record themselves. Okay, here's the other problem. I pay my contributors, and I pay them very well. Like, really, really well. And the thing is, I don't make that much money off of Rahdo runs through when it boils right down to it. And a lot of it, the majority of the money I make off this channel doesn't come to me. It goes to them. So for me to do that, I would want to pay them. And it would be, especially because something like this, where I'm asking them to sit down and really think hard for 2 hours about really heavy, weighty topics. I'd want to pay them well for it. And money's tight. So I don't think that actually works. It's a good idea, but I just don't know. I do like the idea of it though quite a bit. But honestly, doing the podcast is one of the easiest things in the world I can do. I don't have to stream it live. I've done it sitting in the front seat of a car in the past and just, put a mic and plugging it directly into a laptop. So, are you trying to make me lose my job? It is a good idea though, Matthew. If any of them ever asked, if any of them said, hey, I'd love to be on the podcast sometime, of course, I would have them on in a heartbeat. I would absolutely love to have a long, extended conversation with Amy and Maggie, even if it means I have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to work it out for them since they're in Australia. But, I only have so much money to pay them is the problem. I don't make $250,000 like Dice Tower does when they do their crowdfunding. I'm not quite as big a fish as that. Right. But I'm still trying to do right by them. Just like Tom tries to do right by all of his people. Alrighty. What are my thoughts on big box games? By that, James means both base game with multiple expansions together in a big box, and also large, mostly empty box that will hold all the stuff already released that may or may not include new content. Some examples I'm thinking are Dominion, Everdell, Wingspan. Did you ever think our hobby would reach the point where a giant Wingspan box that includes just an expansion priced at $100 would sell 10,000 copies in 6 hours with enough demand for an immediate reprint for just the box? Wow, is that the case? Oh yeah, I skipped over. You said Wingspan they released just a box with some dividers and trays at the same time they released the Asia expansion. I did not know that. I don't want big boxes. I want small boxes. Nothing makes me happier than expansions that can fit inside the original Ticket to Ride sized or Agricola sized box. At one point, I did have the big box Suburbia that was like, the size of 3 boxes with all kinds of trays and all, and it was beautifully done. I thought I was really impressed by it. And because of that, I got rid of my autographed, from Ted Bezier autographed original version of Wingspan that was a Ticket to Ride size box that fit everything in there just fine. And ultimately I decided, this other box is too freaking big. I got to get a Suburbia box back and get all those expansions back now because I don't want these gigantic boxes. So I hate them. They're not necessary, but I am an extreme hater, or not hater. I am completely disinterested in really elaborate storage things where all kinds of stuff gets put away in just the right place and all of that. To me, I hate it because it makes putting the game away take forever. And at the end of the game, I'm exhausted. The last thing I want to do is sort everything out. I just want to put a bunch of stuff in baggies, throw them back in the box. I have a lot more energy for that when I start playing a game and I can sort things, rather than at the end of the game. So, yeah, and honestly, I had no idea that a $100 Wingspan box sold 10,000 units. Jeez. But I am, far be it from me to try to tell people what they should or shouldn't like. I realize for a lot of people, organization is, in America, there's a very successful chain called the Container Store that exists for no reason other than to sell you a million different little containers so you can organize your life. And obviously it's successful. Obviously some people's brain chemistry makes them want to live that way. And I would not want to take that away from them. So if that box makes them happy and makes them appreciate Wingspan more, that's great. My brain chemistry is different. I like big piles of stuff, and I don't mind just throwing them all back in baggies because, hey, you know what? I don't have to have everything sorted out into little subpiles. I can just look in the big pile and find the thing rather than spend 5 minutes sorting everything out. So that's weird. I had no idea things had gotten that far. But for me, more than anything else, all that other stuff aside just comes down to practicality. I only have so many shelves. I will always take the smaller box option if I can, just as a practical thing. Okay, Ramon says, what TWA-like game would you recommend that is similar to the mechanics and dynamics, but perhaps a notch down in complexity or even similar to? I love TWA, but my wife finds it a bit too complex, so it doesn't get to the table as much as I love. Thank you. Well, I can't say Black Angel, which is too bad. Black Angel would be the obvious choice because Black Angel is basically TWA 2 in space, but it's even heavier and more complex, so forget about that. I can think of one. I'm really terrible at this. What I would really suggest you do, Ramon, is go to faq.rahdo.com, entry number 6. Let me bring that up on screen for people who are looking. Here it is, faq.rahdo.com, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nope, not number 6. Number 5. Number 5 is, I love insert game here. What should I buy? And my answer is, don't ask me, man. Use the hive mind of Board Game Geek. Follow this link that will take you to a forum on Board Game Geek where you can ask that exact same question and you will get 100 awesome answers within a couple of days. Much better than I could ever answer you. So I still stand by that, Ramon. Go to faq.rahdo.com, entry number 5, and follow the link and you will get more answers than you need. But all that said, I can think of one. I don't think it's out yet. Or maybe, it maybe just came out or it's about to come out. Encyclopedia. If what you love about TWA is the idea that, hey, everybody's got their own dice and you can bundle your dice with other people's dice and you know, like the dice are, even though I own dice, they're really part of a communal pool. If that's what you really love, you might want to try Encyclopedia. It's not as heavy as TWA, but it's still driven by that same core idea. And I know there are other games that do this as well, but I can't think of it. I can only think of Encyclopedia, which is just now coming out, and you might want to take a look at that. I've done a run through if you'd like to see more. Okay, finally, this is the last. No, we have 2 more. Almost done. Coming back to the Word doc. Will says, since you mentioned your preliminary top 10 includes Jen's preferences. Yes, it does. I always do that in all my rankings. What is my personal top 10 for 2022? Why do I combine them? I combine them because, well, okay, the perfect example is this. My number 1 game for 2022 was actually Stars of Ikarios. Boom. I think that game is amazing. I think that game is absolutely fantastic. I played it for almost a month solo while Jen was gone, on a trip. And I fell so hard in love with it. And then Jen came back and she played it, and we couldn't play it together because it was very difficult for her to deal with the spatial positioning. Her brain didn't work that way, and so it was frustrating for her. And so the thing is, I don't have the game anymore. Right? It's gone. Because there's no reason for me to keep it if I'm not going to keep it to play it solo. If Jen doesn't want to play it somewhere down the road when we get more time, it's gone. So, the thing is, I rely on keeping my collection up to date. If ever somebody asks me, hey, what's your favorite Feld game? Or hey, what's your favorite Kiesling game? Or hey, what are your 3 favorite roll and write games? Because if you just go to rank.rahdo.com, you can find them all. But the problem is, sometimes games that I personally love, you won't find on the list, or you'll, because we literally didn't keep it because Jen didn't like it. Stars of Icarios is an example of that. And so that's why I made the decision that the list, rank.rahdo.com, is a reflection of me and Jen. So that my head won't explode trying to remember, oh, wait, don't forget, Stars of Icarios is really your favorite, even though it's not in your collection anymore, but somebody wants to ask, what's your favorite sci-fi game? And it'd be Stars of Icarios. And So it's just for my own sanity, because if Jen doesn't like it, it doesn't stay in the house. Doesn't matter how much I like it. And so that would be an example. Were there any others like that? I don't think so. I think the rest of my top 10 for 2022 would probably still stand. But let me take a look. Let's just go to games.rahdo.com. Right? And go to the browser. No, let's not go there. Let's go to top.rahdo.com, because that will tell you, hey, I don't have any top games for 2023 yet, but here's all my top 10 for 2022. Let's see. Well, first of all, oh my gosh, would Carnegie get kicked out because Stars of Icarios punched its way in? In theory, it would, and that would not do. So maybe it would. Let's see here. What other stuff is here specifically because of Jen? Woodcraft. I love Woodcraft a lot, but Jen really, at her heart of hearts, loves Woodcraft. It was her favorite game of the year. Woodcraft might not have made my top 10. Because do I like, just for my own, if I wasn't married to Jen and I was just playing with randos, do I like Woodcraft more? Maybe. Oh man, I'd have to go back and think about it. See, I haven't really thought about it that hard. It's generally not the way I think. I always include Jen in my thinking. But Woodcraft maybe would move down a bit. But I think all the rest of this would still be pretty much the same. Stars of Icarios would push its way up. Anything else would try to push its way in, but it was a bit lower. Weather Machine might, because, oh my God, I think Weather Machine is fantastic. Jen's like, oh, I like this a lot, but boy, it's a bit. Weather Machine's down at number 19 because I'm taking into account. It would certainly push up. So there's some stuff like that, but it wouldn't be much of a change. Jen and I really do tend to agree most of the time. Okay, so, but thank you for the question, Will. Love the show. Oh yeah, thank you. Okay, here we are, folks. Kneel before Zod. Although, unfortunately, Zod, with 2 Ds, did not open his email like that, but he totally should have. But anyway, Zod has 3 questions. Are you fond of stealth-based video games? I've made a few. You might have heard of Siphon Filter, but it's not my favorite genre. But I like it in theory. In practice, I tend to find it not my favorite though, because it's hard to do it right, and I'm not a fan of how Metal Gear does it in video game form, where everybody just has constant amnesia and forgets about you. The way we did it in Siphon Filter was, hey, you sneak until you're caught. And then the gameplay changes and you keep playing. That was realistic, and so I like the way I do it, but almost nobody does it the way we do it. Anyway though. How about hidden stealth mechanisms in board games? I love it in theory, but in practice I can't, because every time we have ever gotten a hidden movement game, Jen insists on being the Solid Snake, or the Gabe Logan, or whatever it is. She just does that, or the Frodo. We played the Lord of the Rings one a while ago. And she has no interest in being the hunter, so I always have to play the hunter, and it's okay. But I'm really not a big, deduction is far from my favorite mechanism. It's really, more and more time. I thought Searcher Planet X was brilliant, but it is a deduction game. I didn't keep it. So being a hunter is all about deduction. It's not my favorite mechanism. So, and since I never get to be the prey, probably not that big a fan of them. Question number 2 from Zod. Do I think there's a lack of board games with stealth hidden movements? Geez, it feels like there's a lot of them. Seems like they come out all the time. And there's some really great ones. By far, the best... The 2 best ones are Mind Management is so freaking brilliant. So, and it works so well for 2. And even has an app that works so well. So you can even play it solo. Mind management. And then the other one is actually, a lot of people wouldn't consider it, but I'm going to say The Fugitive from Tim Fowler's games, or just Fugitive. I think it's just Fugitive. That's kind of stretching it, but I would consider it a hidden movement game for 2 players only, and it's brilliant as well. But I feel like there's lots of them. Or there's certainly enough, I would imagine, to satiate the desire from the audience. Question 3, any recommendations? Oh, well, hey, I think I already answered this one. For stealth mechanism, preferably not 1 versus many, like Fury of Dracula, but 1 versus AI, as in Metal Gear Solid. Well, there aren't very many. Okay, I'm going to teach you how to fish, Zod. Let's go back to Board Game Geek, right? Alrighty, let's go to Board Game Geek. Well, first of all, as I said before, don't ask me, man. Go FAQRahdo.com. Question number 5. Go to the recommendation form and you'll get a million answers. But in the meantime, another thing you do, go to Board Game Geek. Go to, where is advanced search when you're zoomed in like this? It's not there. Oh, here it is. All right. Go to, okay, I don't want search. I want advanced search. Then go expand mechanic, should be mechanism or whatever, and find hidden movement. There it is right there. Mark that. And let's see here. I just heard somebody whisper at me in the live chat. Black Sonata, somebody suggested, and we'll see if they're right. Go, advanced search, click hidden movement. That's what you like. You like hidden movement games. Say number of players, 1, and then say exact. This will give you a list of every hidden movement game that supports solo play, which means you have to be able to play against an AI, right? Right. So let's do this and submit. And what have we got? Right at the top, mind management. Number 2, Black Sonata. My live stream audience made the good call. Black Sonata is very good. I did a run through for it years ago. Stop Thief. If I recall correctly, Stop Thief also has a digital app. So you can use that to sneak around. The Musketeers du Roi, or Sniper Elite is fantastic. If it has a solo mode, that's as close as you can get to Metal Gear Solid in board game form. Kimberly did a great run through for the channels. She didn't play it solo. I assume it must do an app as well. Submarine, Shinjuku, Chancellorsville, 1830. And these are all just ones that play solo. City of the Great Machine, Patrol, Hogs of War, Fury at Midway. The list just keeps going and going and going and going. This must be like 50 or 60 games that you might want to take a look at. So, Zod, hopefully you've got a few things you might want to track down now. And an idea of how to find this stuff for yourself in the future. Always trying to teach people how to fish. That's me. Okay, folks, and that was it. But we're not done. We're about to get to Jen's questions. So hang on and we'll be right back. Hey everybody, okay, welcome back. We're about to continue with some gamer questions now that Jen is here, just off camera, with her cup of tea. There you go.
Hello.
There's her hand. Over like this. There you go. She's bound and determined to wave it anywhere except for on camera. You don't get to see her hand, let alone her new haircut she just got for her upcoming trip to Singapore.
No, Thailand.
Thailand. I don't know why I keep saying Singapore. She's going to Thailand for an international glass symposium-y thing, right? Well, but that's not here or there.
It's just a class.
None of that has anything to do with games.
Nothing to do with games.
Yeah, if you folks have any questions about that, you better send in some questions. The questions at Rahdo.com. Jen, tell us more about your trip to Thailand. Because I believe you'll be back by the time...
I would think so.
Yeah, you'll be back. So, folks, if you have any questions about Thailand, you know who to ask. But, there you go. Just got to bring it back here, anybody. There you go. Okay. Anyway, though, for now, we're going to continue with questions. I have no idea what's happening before because I've yet to live stream the first portion of this. We're doing things out of order as always. And a bunch of questions came in this month, game questions, way more than normal. Some of them you can't do because some of them are like part of a big collection, but we'll do what we can. And for starters, we have Darren asking, does Jen have any interest in playing Twilight Imperium? Now, of course, Jen doesn't know because Jen has never heard of Twilight Imperium, but I will now describe Twilight Imperium. Okay. Honey Pie. Yes. Twilight Imperium is an epic space civilization building game. Oh. We've played lots of civilization building games. We tend to like those sorts of things. Yeah. But this game takes, on average, between 5 and 8 hours to play. It is super big and grandiose and epic, and there's lots of, I guess the core gameplay is really simple, straightforward card hand management stuff, but tons of really deep economic simulation, really deep diplomacy between players, making alliances, breaking alliances, and occasionally, every once in a while, some intergalactic warfare. All for 5 to 8 hours, depending on the skill level of the players, I guess. Any interest?
Not at this point in my life.
No? Can you imagine a circumstance where you would want to play a single game for 5 to 8 hours?
I was kind of imagining, like if we went off and had like a gaming week or something in Thailand, and we had nothing else that we were doing, and we were just like when we went to Paros with Iraklis. Is he doing that still?
No.
Shoot.
Cardboard and Sun, I believe, has the sun has set on it, I believe.
Well, that was too bad, because that was pretty cool. Because basically, we were just there to enjoy being where we were, play games.
Yeah, but would you, even still, under those circumstances, would you have wanted to play that for a solid day, or would you have rather played 3 games with breaks in between?
Oh, probably 3 games with breaks in between.
So that's what I'm saying. I mean, really, can you imagine sitting at a table playing any board game for 6 to 8 hours?
Probably not.
Right. So that's your answer, Darren. No. And me, I want to do it only once, though, because I can't imagine I'd ever do it a second time. All right, so Dieter had a bunch of questions, and a few of these Jen can't handle, like number 1. I took out the intro. Dieter said, basically, I'm trying to put the screws to you and make you make tough choices. So here we go. Number 1, I can only have the reviews of Dice Tower, Man vs. Meeple, or Shut Up and Sit Down. Jen doesn't know. Jen doesn't watch board game content. She doesn't even watch mine, let alone somebody else's. So she doesn't care. So this one is my question.
Yep.
And it's certainly not Shut Up and Sit Down. I mean, they're very well produced, but I almost always vehemently disagree with them. I think they get it wrong a lot. And plus they do 1 a month. So I could certainly do without them. 1 or 2 a month. No big deal. Man vs. Meeple versus Dice Tower. That is a much tougher choice. I tend to enjoy the Man vs. Meeple takes. I think they're more simpatico with me, just as players. So I'm kind of drawn towards them. But on the other hand, Dice Tower just has volume. Although, to be fair, it's kind of rare that either channel covers something if I'm not covering it around the same time. That said, I think Man vs. Meeple tends to beat me to the punch with exclusives more often than Dice Tower. So I think just in terms of sheer utility, why would I watch? So I can learn more about a game. Would I rather hear from somebody who just makes me, you got that wrong, you clearly got that wrong, I've never played the game and I vehemently disagree with what you're saying there. Or somebody said, you folks get it. I think I'm going to go with Man vs. Meeple over Dice Tower. So that is the winner. This one you might be able to handle, Honey Pie. The game designs of Uwe Rosenberg, Jamie Stemaier, or Vladimir Suchy. No, you can't do it. I mean, you barely know who Uwe Rosenberg is. So Jen's going to enjoy her tea for a little bit. That's a tough one. Hey, she showed it on screen. Well done. Wow. Well, again, if I just want to talk about ease of utility, it'd probably go with Uwe because, I mean, Uwe has produced probably 3 times as many games that Jen and I like or love compared to Jamie or Vladimir. I mean, that said, Jamie, giving up Wingspan and Tapestry and Charterstone, there's so many wonderful games from Stemaier. Although you didn't say Stemaier, you said specifically Jamie, so that is a subset. So, that's not giving up Wingspan. Hey. Or Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig. So, just Jamie versus Uwe versus Vlad. Honestly, of the 3, I think Vladimir probably most consistently makes games that are perfect for us. Jamie, I don't think, it's very rare that we don't tend to enjoy his games too, but he just makes the least. He has the smallest output as an individual designer. So I'll take Jamie off because I'm giving myself fewer games. And if it were quality over quantity, I'd probably go with Vladimir, but Uwe Rosenberg, again, has, at least 3 times the bibliography, so we'll go with Uwe. Now, here's one you can do, Honey Pie. Dice or cards? All things being equal, if you could only play games that had cards and you couldn't play games with dice anymore, or vice versa, which way would you go? What do you tend towards?
I think I prefer dice for the prettiness of them, but I think I prefer cards for the much more possible uses of them, because you've got 4 surfaces, maybe even 2 sides of cards. So yeah, I think probably cards.
Cards, I would say as well. I mean, yeah, just for the sheer utility of them.
We have some very pretty pearly dice.
Yes,
and
we
pretty
do.
Colors and.
But I mean, you can get pretty art on cards.
That's true.
Yep. So I think for both of us, that's going to be cards. Not happy about that choice, but that's where it would go. Next up, honey, how you might be able to handle this. Spiel, which you've been to many times, and Gen Con, which you've never been to. Now, Dieter's saying, which is the most fun? So what you have to imagine Gen Con is basically, you've been to Dice Tower West, you've been to the Board Game Geek Convention. Imagine those multiplied, imagine those scaled up to the size of Essen Spiel. That's basically. So what would draw you in more?
I don't know, because when I've gone to Spiel, I've pretty much been selling.
Yes. Well, you go to Dice Tower West and Board Game Geek Con, you are mostly selling too.
Well, actually, we were just discussing that, weren't we? Gen Con. Mm-hmm. And how if I got a little stand at Gen Con, but I think I'd be overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. I'd be inundated in stuff. So,
yeah. I mean, I'm sure, yes, you would by far do your best business, but you find, what you said the other day was that often you get overwhelmed with the business you do at Board Game Geek Con and Dice Tower West, because sometimes you just get such a huge rush and you feel bad that you can't service everybody immediately and people are standing in line.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, again, imagine that multiplied by 10.
Yeah, that would be very stressful for me. Mm-hmm. But if we go just for playing games, obviously Gen Con, because I know Spiel is mainly a selling event.
That is, and that's what it comes down to. I mean, Dieter asked most fun. There's no comparison. There's no
no fun at Spiel?
Yeah, Gen Con wins, hands down. There's not to say you can't have fun at Spiel, but Spiel exists. Everything about Spiel is about buying games. It is it is a shopping excursion. Whereas Gen Con is
Except for the parking. Because they don't have enough parking nearby.
Yeah. Whereas Gen Con, I think for both of us, if we want to go to have fun, Gen Con. For utility, I would say Essen, because the reality is, if I go to Gen Con to get games, I'm going to come out with maybe like 10 or 15 I'm excited about. If I go to Spiel to get games, I'm probably going to come out with 2 or 3 times as many, because most of the games that Jen and I end up loving most in the year come out at Spiel, not at Gen Con. So if I had to pick one, I would choose Spiel, but not to have fun, but to ensure more fun later, basically. Although, on the flip side,
play later.
On the flip side, that's completely counteracted by the having to fly for 8 hours, as opposed to, well, I mean, even still, it's a pretty long flight to get to Gen Con from here. It's basically on the East Coast, Indianapolis. So they're both pretty bad. But I see. Moving on. Now, this is another one that you could definitely answer. I'm genuinely curious. I had a pretty good guess you would pick cards over dice, but would you rather play deck builders or worker placement games?
I think worker placement.
Wow, you didn't even think twice. Okay, so I didn't have to describe. You understand exactly what that means. Yeah. All right. You got to explain that. That's really interesting.
Oh, well, I just think that's a more interesting choice. Deck builder, I guess, tends to be more solitary kind of thing, because we're each building our own decks and doing whatever it is that our deck is going to do. But worker placement is a bit more interactive, and you're interacting with the whole board, I think, rather than just what's in your hand.
Not that you can't have deck builders like that, but a typical deck builder versus a typical worker placement game.
Yes.
That I would say, yes, there is higher propensity for interaction. Yeah, I would agree with that. And that's it. That's the only thing you've said so far. That is the defining factor for you. You seek out. Sorry, this is just not staying. Jen wanted me to, folks, life is good. And this is just driving me nuts so it is unfortunate. We just have to remove these all together. But anyway, and again, sorry, my apologies for folks who are listening instead of watching. This is at the end of the day, a podcast, which means the majority of people will listen and not see us. Apologies. I'm wearing a new hoodie sweatshirt that Jen got me that says life is good, but the pull strings for the hood completely obscure the life is good message. And Jen had tried to tuck them under the hood, but they were constantly popping out. I was trying to put them back up. I'm moving on. So, really, but I mean, I tend to find that you enjoy building things more, and there's no better example of building something than a deck builder. You are making a deck. You are making it run. You're constantly interacting with the toy that you have built. There's no love for that. You would.
Oh, no, there's definitely love for that.
Yes, but I mean, there's nothing that would put deck building over the top for worker placement, and just for the sole one reason you mentioned, which is player interaction.
I guess I feel like the worker placement is interacting with the entire game as well. Mm-hmm. As opposed to a deck builder where you're, again, just building what's in your hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then, Jen, I disagree. I would take deck building 7 days to Sunday over worker placement. Worker placement is fine, but worker placement is kind of limited, and developers, designers have to work really hard to do interesting things because it is so simplistic. I think one of the reasons people, and maybe Jen too, she didn't articulate this, but I think one of the reasons people are drawn to worker placement is because it generally happens in Euros. And in Euros, you generally have the world fairly abstracted away. There's like a whole layer between you and what's actually happening in the world because you're just this faceless middle manager. But in a worker placement game, you have a concrete relationship with your actual workers. They're kind of an extension of you, extending yourself into the world. Whereas without that, if I'm building a tableau, I don't exist. I'm not, I'm a force behind the scenes, and all of that. So I think just on like a connection level, worker placement works to make the world and the game come alive more. And I totally get that, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, I think there are so many more cool and interesting things that can be done with deck building. Deck builders are effectively, as I just said, engine building games. That you are implicitly building something. The act itself, stripping everything else away, building a deck, to me, is a more engaging experience because I'm making choices. What am I going to put in my deck? How is my deck going to function? What am I going to pull out of my deck? When am I going to make these choices? Everything that goes into the act of deck building, if you look at that as a verb, compared to everything that goes into the act of worker placement. I have a worker, I'll put it on the dot and do what it says. That's it. Now that again,
have to
that's
interact with the whole thing and decide where to put your.
Well, yes. I mean, and so I have a worker. I will decide which thing am I going to do. I will have to consider: am I going to be? Can I wait on this to do the other thing? And what is the ideal order? But is somebody else going to interfere with that inadvertently or advertently? So it's not. I don't mean to simplify that, but at the end of the day, just the raw mechanics of it. Pick a thing, put it on a thing, do what the thing says, is, to me, less fulfilling than I've made a thing. At the end of the game, this is my deck. This is what I spent the whole game doing.
Well, we should still be playing Magic the Gathering then.
Well, yes, you're right. But that Magic the Gathering,
Except
the fundamental thing that Dominion did is it turned deck construction, which is what Magic the Gathering is, into a game itself.
Yeah.
There is no game to spending hour upon hour. Well, maybe I should pull this card out, and I need to put 3 of this card in, and okay, what's my ratio of lands to spells and blah? And I just hate that. There's nothing fun about that at all.
I mean, actually, we would do open decks.
Yes, we when we played in tournaments, we mostly played sealed deck tournaments where you just had to, hey, open some boxes, get what you can, do the best you can, and just play the game. But Dominion so brilliantly took those ideas and gamified them. And okay, suddenly what was a chore becomes a fun and fulfilling and exciting act in and of itself. So to me, that's why deck building, again, I mean, now there's exceptions. I mean, there's a million things you can do with worker placement. There's a million things you can do with deck builders. But for Dieter, I'm just bringing it down to the raw simplicity. I think deck building is the superior experience for my taste. And for Jen, it sounds like worker placement, which I was surprised by. But that's why I wanted to ask her. Okay, next one. A great game with terrible components or a less good game with beautiful components?
A great game with terrible components.
Really?
Yes, because we can adjust those components at will.
Yes, Jen does make very beautiful game components. In case anybody doesn't know, head to gamerglass.art and you too can make your ugly games look beautiful. That's a good point. I am just gonna. I'm gonna assume. That's to me. That's a cop out. That's and if you were to take that away, no, you're over at somebody else's house. Do you want to play their ugly game with really great gameplay, or do you want to play their drop dead gorgeous amazing game with okay gameplay?
I still think I'd rather play a great game
with ugly.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's really interesting. That's very surprising.
Are you saying you'd rather play a prettier game?
I am not sure. To me, it's not quite so cut and dry. You're just like, boom, just done. Even though your earlier observations were, well, dice are so pretty.
I know.
But
They are.
I mean, and I know, I guess it's consistent then, right?
Yeah.
Because you said dice are so pretty, but I'll take the cards. I'll take the ugly cards, the boring cards. And so, yeah, you're being completely consistent.
And again, with the deck building, I'm choosing a more immersive experience with worker placement.
Yeah. Well, see, the interesting thing is Dieter tried to make it hard because he said, it's still a good game. It's a good game. It's not a bad game. He didn't say, a
good.
piece of garbage with insanely good components. He said, no, an amazing game with ugly, the worst imagined, just the nastiest, gross stuff you can look at. Or, yeah, this game is good. It's not amazing. It's not world changing, but it's good. And geez Louise, look at these components. Even still, with all that said, you would play with the ugly thing. See, I'm inclined to think I'd probably be shallow and go for the tactile nature of it, the visual feast of it, as opposed to looking at something that just makes me want to make my skin crawl the whole time. Well, it doesn't matter how good it is.
I think the only thing that would make your... Well, I guess no, because there's some art styles that I don't like.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, it's gross or there's lots of, really horrific scenes of violence. It's just like, no, they're just really cheap. Really just cheap garbage stuff. Really thin stuff that crinkles really bad. Boring, blah, everything about it. The art is... There's nothing objectionable in the art other than the art itself, which looks like it was done by... 5-year-olds who should not have been get, or just, that kind. There's no charm to it. It's just, oh God, that looks so primitive and amateur, right? Yeah. You would still rather play that with the amazing gameplay. Honestly, I think I wouldn't.
Yeah. Okay. Now that I think you've talked me around because it's not an awful game.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's just a less good game.
Yeah, if it were a bad game with good components, easy, of course.
Yeah.
But a good game versus a great game with great components versus horrible components.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll join you.
I think that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah. Okay. Next one. I don't think you don't remember. The Tree of Everdell versus the Dice Tower of Wingspan. The Tree of Everdell it was a gimmick. There was a gigantic tree, and it was a worker placement game where you're drafting cards. We haven't played this for years, so I'm sure well, actually, you know what? What the heck? I will show you the picture.
Okay.
Everdell tree. Maybe you'll recognize it. Boom. Let's see here. That is the Everdell tree. It's basically, it's not fitting on screen. There we go. It's a place where all the cards lay. That you send workers out and there's a bunch of cards and it's gigantic. I mean, the thing's like 1.5 feet tall and it's just like, oh, these cards go over there. Those cards go over there. The draw pile is underneath it, so it keeps it tucked away. I think there's more cards arrayed out on the ground. Oh, actually, this is a terrible picture. Board Game Geek, Everdell. So if we go to Board Game Geek, let's see the whole game set up. If we can get some images. There we go. That's perfect. That's a good image right there. Thank you, Madara Cindieri. So, beautiful game. We played the Little Everdell in December. Remember, with all the really cute animals?
Yeah.
This is the original game. It's a worker placement game. You go out and grab the cards. Oh, and yeah, you don't grab cards up here. It's the objective cards are laid out up here. So this is just a display. It serves no function other than to say, oh, look at the big, beautiful tree, but here's where the game is. All the cards you're playing to yourself and all the worker placement you're doing here. So that's the Everdell tree versus, what was the other thing? Oh, the Wingspan. Don't know why this didn't occur to me. I can show these to Jen, and then she can weigh in. The Wingspan dice tower, which right there it is. This is the, you roll the big dice for the different foods the animals want. The dice go in the back, and they come out, and it looks like a big birdhouse.
Yeah.
What do you value more? What provides more pleasure to you in gaming?
I'm going to go with Wingspan.
Yeah, me too. That tree is ridiculous. It serves no function whatsoever. It's a vacuous gimmick. It's fine. I know a lot of people love it, but it actually, in higher player counts, makes it harder to play because people behind the tree suddenly can't see. If that card, it'd be upside down, but at least I could see it if it were on the table. But no, it's literally obscured by a tree. Whereas this is a really pretty and very nice and very well considered dice tray. Now, honestly, I don't need either of them. Dice trays are fine, or dice towers, I should say. But if I had to pick one, that is what I would pick. And it sounds like Jen feels the same. Mm-hmm. Alrighty, honey, would you rather play a solo game, a game with 3 players, or a game with 4 players? You will notice he specifically left out our preferred player count of 2 players.
We've had a lot of fun playing with 2 players.
Yes,
Two
but
extras.
but there are
No, I'm saying 2 friends.
Oh, 2. So that meaning a 3-player game. Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, I don't think
meaning
you.
a 4-player game.
Well, you just said with 2 friends, so that'd be. Oh, it's because there's 2 of us, of course. Right. Okay. So you're going to say 4 players because you would rather play with 2 people because you're still assuming it's always with me.
Yeah.
If I weren't there, would you rather play with 2 friends or 3 friends if I were not in the picture?
Probably just 2.
Okay. So what is that? I mean, so it's less about the player count of the game and more of the fact I don't want to play with more than 2 friends. I do not want to play with 3 friends.
Well, I don't know. It just seems like the more people, the longer the game.
Yes.
That's
not always the case. Sometimes games are designed to scale well, and you take more turns at lower player counts or stuff like that. But generally speaking, yes, the more players, the longer a game takes.
But we've had such a good time playing with couples in Malta and here that I just think that.
Yeah, I mean, because there have been plenty of times when it's been you and me and one other person, and you're saying implicitly you find it more engaging to play with another couple rather than a third person. That's really interesting. And can you articulate why?
I don't want to diss any of my single friends.
The 3-player game is quicker than the 4-player game.
Yeah, I know.
So explain yourself.
Well, I'm just trying to think about it.
Yeah, and it's not a reflection. Don't worry, Leva. It's not you. Yeah. Don't worry. Who else have we? Morning. It's not you. It's yeah. I'm really curious.
Maybe it's I like our dynamic, and I like having another
reflection of that dynamic.
Dynamic. Going on. Yeah,
all right.
That could very well be.
Okay.
And I don't mind playing with just one of our, if a friend comes over, but yeah, I know that was the question.
Right. No, it's interesting. I'm now here. Okay, let me continue the thought exercise. What if it's 3-player game, you, me, and somebody else, or 4-player game, you, me, 2 other people who are not a couple, who are completely unrelated from each other.
Then I guess I'd rather do a 3-player.
Because it's going to be quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and you at no point you say, you would never play a solo board game. Because that was on the option too, and you're like, not interested.
Well, no,
I mean, you've done Sudoku puzzles. Those are practically solo board games. Roll and write, effectively, sort of.
Yeah, that's true.
Without the rolling, just the writing. Thinking right.
Yeah. No, I feel like I have enough game playing time that I wouldn't play solo.
Okay.
At this point in my life.
So it comes down to the makeup of the individual people. But it sounds like your gut is a full 4-player game, but provided it's another couple.
Yeah.
With another pair of people with an existing relationship, you find that dynamic. Couples night out rather than,
Yes.
4's company, 3's a crowd for you. Interesting. I don't think I necessarily respond to that, and this is no offense to David and Angela, or any of the other couples gamers we have played, or Steve and Betsy, or So I would just come back to 3 players means it goes faster. 3 players means, again, assuming it's you, then that is only one person who, when I'm playing with other people, I am really not playing the game for myself. I am 100% playing the game for the other person to make sure they have a good time, to make sure they are not, having any speed bumps or rough patches in the road. Having 2 additional people that I have to monitor everything, not to ensure that I beat them and win the game, but to ensure that they are having the best time possible, that is literally more work for me.
The work.
So for me, it's a no-brainer, 3-player. And with all that, you'd think I'd say, solo. But no, I'd rather play games with people. I enjoy solo, but I would not call myself a solo board gamer. If I were a solo activity, I'd rather catch up on my never-ending queue of YouTube videos or what have you. Okay, next one. Cooperative versus competitive game. The ultimate question. And I don't know why he put an umlaut in the cooperative, but let's say cooperative game or competitive game. Which way do you lean, Honey Pie?
Well, I think I lean competitive because I don't like my bum getting kicked by too much stuff being thrown at me.
Yes, and because, again, what that means is I am no threat to Jen. So she would much rather play against me than in a co-op system that makes her feel under threat. That is what I just heard you say. Is that incorrect?
That is incorrect because the co-op games, That is their shtick, is that they throw a lot of stressful stuff at you.
That's not usually the case. There are some co-ops that play that way, but there are a lot of co-ops that follow the more pandemic, where hey, they take it easy on you. It gets tough for a while. It gets easy.
I like that kind of co-op.
Yes, but I think you have a tendency to assume all co-ops are like that, when in fact that's not always the case.
Yes.
It is interesting. I think maybe I might say the majority of co-ops do follow that. Hey, let's just throw you into the deep end of the pool and with a bunch of rocks in your pocket from the first round. And good luck.
That's fun. That'll be fun.
Yep.
Enjoy.
All right. Well, me, it's exact opposite. I love cooperative games. I would much rather work with people than against people. And I am not at all put off by a game that really puts the pressure on. In fact, I like that. I love that. I like a game that just makes me feel, oh my God, we're doomed. All right, we got to work together. We got to science the bleep out of this. That is my favorite thing to do. So I definitely lean the other way. Okay, last one. Western games, Old West, American West, space games, or farm games.
Farm games.
Not even going to give it a second thought. Is instantly.
Yep.
Any farm, any time in history, over anything in the American West or outer space.
Definitely against Western. And space games I do enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I like farmer games.
Yep.
I like chickens. And growing stuff. And feeling like you've created something, you've grown something.
Yeah. Honestly, and that's the reason I would agree. Farm games tend to be about creating, the act of building, the act of, as opposed to space games or Western games, which tend to be about conquering or fighting, or exploring, to be fair. Yeah. But even still, I would rather build than explore. To me, that is a more interesting and compelling verb. If given the choice, would you like to go and explore, or would you? Well, see, actually, in real life, I'd rather explore, because building in real life is really hard. So I guess that makes. But I mean, the satisfaction of I hate cooking. I hate cooking with a passion, because I don't appreciate the work that goes into something that's so ephemeral. But a game doesn't have all that work. A game is just 100% fun towards the goal of creating something, a thing of beauty. Either because it's physically beautiful or because, it's just a beautiful combination of mechanisms that, dovetail nicely together. I find that engaging activity in a fantasy, not in a fantasy, but in a idealized, relaxing circumstance. Yeah. So, honestly, in real life, I prefer to explore because that's literally easier to do than build a thing. But I do appreciate building in life more than exploring. I don't know, and for you, it just comes down to chickens?
No, I think building as well. Yeah.
And growing. That's another good part, too. That's often a big thing that you don't often see in board games outside of farming simulations. And there's no reason for that. Really about the main place you see growth otherwise is in a war game where the enemies keep building, or like the viruses and pandemic. Mm-hmm. You see growth there, but that's not growth that you are molding and shaping and is a reflection of you. Or, hey, my bank account is growing. Yeah, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong about that, but that is not as meaningful and as engaging as I grew these carrots, Yeah. So yeah, I think we agree on that one.
And then I took them to the market.
And then I took them to the market and I sold them and my bank account grew. Yay. All righty. Or my victory point. All right. So that was it for Dieter. Good ones, Dieter. Hey, feel free to do that again. That was great. Gerald asks, would you rather play a new Trajan expansion or a new game, say with a theme you really like? Now, it's been a long time since we played Trajan, but Trajan for the longest time has been your favorite Stefan Feld game. It is the one set in ancient Rome where you have a Mancala in front of you. And the Mancala is full of all the little colorful cylinders. And a Mancala means, hey, I pick one of those things. I pick up everybody. I drop them off like spreading seeds, because in real life, that's Mancala. We're literally spreading seeds. It's kind of like a farming type thing. And whatever the last thing is, I activate that. Yeah. And then Trajan really kind of repopularized Mancala. Brought them back, and it was, that means I could activate the Senate, or I could, move the armies around up here, or I could work my way up. I mean, there's like 6 or 7 things you could do, engage in trade and all that. But at the end of the day, it's about this really cool, very, very puzzly, very hard to wrangle core mechanism. And I'm sure Gerald mentions this because back when you did your top 20 games of all time, Trajan was in your top 10 and it was your favorite. So he's saying, would you rather? So now, if you do not remember, because again, we haven't played Trajan for years. If you do not remember Trajan well enough to say that, you could abstract this a little bit to say, would you rather play an expansion to one of your favorite games, whatever that might be? Or would you rather play a completely new game with something that, a theme that you're really going to like? Just in general, which way do you tend to go? So you don't have to limit it to Trajan if that's going to be tough.
Well, we've had pretty good luck with expansions, actually making games, but we also had a few games where we thought, I think I prefer it the original way.
Sure.
So I guess for me, I would prefer to look at an expansion of a game that I already love.
Okay. So just in general, all things being equal, assuming you're going to get just as good an experience, you would rather revisit something through an expansion rather than, something completely new.
Yes.
Can you say why? That is interesting.
Because that harkens back to my preference of playing a game that I know I like again. Mm-hmm. Which is how I used to be. I think I've changed a little bit over the years where I am now appreciating more the cult of the new. Mm-hmm. But I think still at my heart, I would probably prefer to play a game I know I love.
Alrighty then. Moving right along. Let's see. Of course, I just put this here. I should answer that question myself. I would prefer to play something completely new at the end of the day. And that's actually kind of an about face for me because I've often said, expansions are so great. Kind of same. I get to go back and visit my old faves. And I love doing that. But I appreciate novelty more. I am seeking out new experiences wherever possible rather than revisiting experience that I already know that I love. To me, that act of exploration is more engaging for me. Alrighty. Jerry says, my wife and I are getting into board games and recently picked up Istanbul. This, you do not required to remember Istanbul, don't worry. Hi. We're finding dead turns a bit frustrating. Or turns where you just can't do anything to progress. Instead, prepare to progress. Just part of board gaming. Do we need to accept that? Or do we need to get better at playing? For example, we've run out of assistants. This is back to the game. Going to the fountain to collect them takes 2 moves. I got to get all the way back there and then I got to get them back. Or picking up the closest assistant would be a wash of a turn. We're also really enjoying your... Oh, thank you, Jerry. So I'm going to take it away from Istanbul to a more specific thing.
I'm remembering Istanbul as something with a big, long kind of trail of tiles.
It's a grid of cards, and you have a stack of workers. And as you move around, you're dropping assistants off.
It's kind of more of a souk thing, right?
Yeah. So, yes, they were literally set in the souks.
Okay.
And so the big thing is, the central place of the whole board lets you, hey, I'm going to get them all back. And actually, Jerry, let me just say...
Wasn't there one where you sent somebody's kid to jail?
Yes, that is Istanbul. Yes, yeah, that happened. That's one of the things I saw. The trick about Istanbul, you should not be having as many dead turns as it's sounding like. Going back to the center of the board, that is a desperate move, and that is something you should try to avoid. The main thing about Istanbul is as you create your path, what you're doing is you are creating your path back, and you want to try to retrace your steps. I'm going to go all the way over there and leave all these breadcrumbs all over the place, but then I'm going to come back, and maybe I'm going to go a slightly different way, but I'm going to be trying to pick the stuff back up as I go as part of my overall plan, as opposed to, I need to get this back. I don't want to go there. So I think if you spend a bit more time, and you really have to kind of... Istanbul is a game that really encourages long-term thinking. So it sounds like in that case, Jerry, I don't think that you should be getting as many dead turns as are. But I'm, again, going to broaden this for you, Honey Pie, because there are a lot of games. Ever since Concordia, it has become a very, very common mechanism, whether it's a hand of cards or a bunch of workers, or a bunch of dice that you can spend that, okay, I got all my stuff. And all right, and I'm going to do a thing, and I'm going to do a thing, and I'm starting to run out of things. And sooner or later, you got to spend that, I got to spend that turn getting all my stuff back.
Yeah.
And then start building again. That has become an incredibly common thing. And now, when it's done smartly, and not all games do this smartly, they set it up so that, that turn, when I get all my stuff back, that can be your most favorite turn because, hey, that's when I get to activate this engine I've been building over here. And if I've set this up right or I've got the right stuff to feed in, I can do a thing. But a lot of games say, nope, just every once in a while. You've run out of workers. And you know what? You were hoping somebody else would bump workers and give them back to you, and nobody did. So now you just got to spend a turn doing nothing, a dead turn. Yeah. So, what are your feelings about dead turns and the overall structure of that?
Yes, I also do not like dead turns. I also don't like turns where you're doing teeny tiny minuscule things.
See, that's interesting. When I saw this, I mean, I skim all these questions to decide what section they should go in. I thought, Jerry, you were actually talking about that what we often refer to as baby steps. Games where, yeah, you just do a lot of little turns over and over and over again. But I think Jerry's more along the lines of this structure, which again, Jerry, you will see it in a lot of games where, okay, you get to do some stuff, but now you got to waste time resetting. And it's not like a worker placement game. It's not like Agricola where, oh yeah, it's the end of the round. Everybody uses all their workers now. Everybody resets. Everybody starts over. It's like, nope. I've placed 2 workers. I've got 4 more workers, but no, I need to get these workers back now because they're the workers who can go to these other places, or I need to clear that space out again, or whatever. I like that. I find that when it's done well, it's really engaging because it puts you in so much control, especially when they do smart things like, oh, I'm incentivized to get everything built because the more stuff I deploy, when I do the recall, the more stuff I'll get. Or by the same token, hey, the flip side of that, the more stuff I deploy, the worse that turn is going to be, thereby incentivizing me to only put a few things out and then recall really quickly so I can get a stronger recall turn. There's a lot of ways to play with it, and they don't always play with it, but I think there's a really cool stuff to do there. And Jerry, I think Istanbul, if you get a bit more, it's less about, it sounds like you're playing kind of in the moment, and you really need to be thinking more long-term about how, oh, now I've got to spend all this time getting this stuff back. When no, getting stuff should just be something that's kind of happening implicitly as part of your long-term planning. Sano, do you have anything more to say on this subject, 95? Because honestly, I thought this was going to be the baby step thing, but it was something else. So
yeah. No, nope, I don't think I do.
Okay, then we will move on to Shonks, who also had a bunch of questions, some of which Jen probably can't handle. But Shonks says, my mind is an endless deluge of questions, so I shall endeavor to provide you with many. Shonks, you are the MVP of this episode. Keep it up, Shonks. Keep this show alive. Okay, number 1, when it comes to deck builders, what would you say are the most successful and least successful mechanisms for those types of games? We already talked about deck builders a little bit. I put this on here because I knew there should be one thing that you should be very quick to say, Honey Pie, about deck builders. What do you really appreciate in a deck builder?
The engine works.
That's not the thing that's so incredibly obvious. What is the one thing that only one deck builder in the entire industry does, and yet every time we ever play a new deck builder, you say, oh, is this one of the ones that does it? And like, no, Honey Pie, no game does that except for one game.
Yes, putting your cards back in the proper order. Having
control over the discard pile.
Yeah.
Would you put that as a powerful tool for a good design of a deck builder that you appreciate?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm referring to, of course, folks, to Aeon's End. Although, to be fair, there's a Ryan Lockett game. I think it was the Ancient World that does it as well, and almost nothing else does. In most deck builders, hey, you got to play your whole hand. It doesn't matter because, or it's not the putting them in order. It's the fact that, hey, when you get your deck back, you don't shuffle it.
Right.
You just flip it over. Yep. So, and that is representative of a broader stylistic approach to deck building, which is, of course, I want more control over this deck. I want less to be at the whims of just random shuffles and all of that.
Yes.
So there's lots of things that can be done. That again break the Dominion-inspired mold. I do not have to play all my cards. A game that lets me keep some cards. And or I'll discard because I don't need them and I'm trying to get to what I need. The less cards I have in my hand, the more I can draw. I want to get through my deck pack. No, I want to hold on to this and I want to wait until this other card comes out. Most deck builders don't do this because most deck builders just skew towards Dominion. And I would say Donald X. Vaccarino made a mistake with that. I mean, Dominion would be a better game if it was optional whether you wanted to discard unused cards or not.
Yeah.
So that, can you think of other stuff then that, now that I've got the juices flowing. Not that you're a professional game designer, so that's okay if you don't.
There's nothing that's just leaping out of my brain.
That's okay. Then you'll have other ones that are here. Another one is, what was it? Asonia has this really, really beautiful thing where, again, it comes down to more control over the deck. I can take cards, a big part of deck is deck thinning, right? In this Asonia, part of the deck building is taking them and putting them in little piles, and if you fill up a given pile with enough things you've discarded, that then becomes a permanent resource you have for the rest of the game. So turning your refuse into valuable stuff. That's really, really cool. And I've never seen any place other than Asonia. Another one that I've seen in a few games is kind of similar. Deck builders, are great. Hey, the deck gets bigger and bigger. You want to get rid of the stuff you don't need so you can draw the cards you want more often. But there are some games that have an equal focus towards deck destruction, because the only way you score points is pulling cards out of your deck. Great cards, powerful cards that you love to use. But say every once in a while, you're like, I need to pull these out and put them in my score pile, which means for the rest of the game, I can't use that card anymore. I think that's really awesome. You see that in Valley of the Kings and, the really, really wonderful Dale of Merchants. So those are some cool stuff. Can you think of anything? It's okay if you don't, Honey Pie. You're a glass artist, not a game designer.
Yeah.
I'm a former game designer, so that's why my brain, and I do this kind of professionally. So those are some examples. But I think more than anything else, a deck builder can give you more control over that deck is to be lauded. Let's see. Okay, this is an interesting one. Honey Pie, do you prefer Spirit Island or Gloomhaven? A game that has you hit the ground running with really cool powers, asymmetric powers that are really unique to you. Or do you prefer Clank, or Star, you don't remember Star Realms, but you remember Clank, where you just have a basic deck and you start building up?
That's interesting.
I think you should definitely be able to have and I honestly don't know what you're going to say.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoy Clank, and I think that's easy just to sit down and start.
Yeah.
Whereas certainly Gloomhaven, every time we sat down to Gloomhaven, I had to get my deck out, and I had to figure out which cards I was going to do that time, and remind myself of what all the powers were and all that. So I think for probably for my mental state these days, I would prefer Clank.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right. No, that's pretty straightforward. You say your mental state these days. There was a time when we dutifully played Gloomhaven for like almost a year, multiple times a week.
Yep, I know. That was in Malta.
Why is your mental state different now?
I just feel like I've got so much in my head all the time.
And you didn't in Malta? So wait, does that mean Malta actually worked? Because Malta, I think we've identified in the past, a failed experiment. Because we were living in England, we lived there for 8 years, gotten our dual citizenship.
Yep.
And when the opportunity came up to go to Malta, one of the big attractions, one of the big feathers in its cap was you could relax. Because you felt so harried, you were involved in like the local galleries and you had so many things going on and your life was just so chock-a-block. And you're like, I could just relax in Malta. And I never felt like you did relax in Malta. I felt like you just immediately set about trying to recreate all the structures that drove you crazy and gave you so much stress. Okay, now I got to build a new glass art empire in this new country. And I got to make connections with all the places all over. And I got to have meetings with all the artists. And to me, it always felt like, you're just falling back into habits and nothing was different. And I kind of feel like you felt the same way. But maybe that's not the case. Because you're kind of identifying you were in a different mental state.
I think I was. Yeah. I did still want artist friends.
Yes.
So certainly building a network of artist friends.
And you were still working just as hard making glass. You spent hours. I don't think you work more hours now or in England than you did in Malta. You spent a lot of time in front of the torch.
Well, you don't know how much time I worked in England because you were gone all the time.
I'm assuming while I'm working, you're working, but that's a fair point, yeah.
Yeah. So no, I definitely worked more hours in England.
Okay, but do you work more hours here than you did in Malta?
Well, I think my time is spent with gaming and stuff. I don't know. I feel like
that's the thing. We played a lot more games in Malta. Well, for the last couple of years, we have really been slowing down our game because you have expressed you're really feeling a lot of stress, and it's harder for you these days to bite off big, deep games, and like you used to, just like, hey, bring it on, I love it. So
I think in Malta, I just had less. I don't know. I felt like I had less responsibilities. I just, once we'd kind of gotten the country figured out and knew where to buy vegetables.
But is that not the case here? We know where to buy vegetables.
No, I know. I'm just saying. I don't know.
Are you saying it's because? So I guess one thing is the only responsibilities we had in Malta were each other and the dogs and the chickens. Here, we have family responsibilities. Yeah. We have a lot more going on with that, which, that's one of the reasons we came back. So you could get, because you were basically so divorced from your family. We're getting into the personal section, folks, but this is still game related. I wonder how much of it is that. Did you feel...
There is definitely an overarching layer of mental activity.
Yes, it's just been dumped. Oh, here's 20% more CPU usage on a day-to-day basis that just pretty much went away when it was you and me at the end of the world.
Yes, and everybody was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in our lives
yes, of
was
course.
fine.
Yes, yeah.
So it was sort of a few golden years where we had no concerns about family stuff.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. Okay, so would you say, would Malta Gen answer this question differently? Would you say, no, give me the big chunky thing. I want to say, oh, look at this big elaborate toy I've got to play with. Let me start working, as opposed to let me build it up over the space of 45 minutes and now it's ready to go. See, I brought it back to the question, folks.
I'm just trying to think of, like, in Mdina. Because in Mdina, I really had very little going on. Mm-hmm. I was learning lamp working, so I was having a really good time.
Yeah, you're switching your career, basically.
Yeah, and I just didn't have any responsibilities, really.
Mm-hmm.
And you were working, like, more or less normal hours, so we had evenings that we were together and playing and everything. And I really enjoyed that time together that we had. And I'm trying to remember the kinds of games we were playing there. And, of course, I mainly remember Escape. Yeah, and how can we do a game before you go to work?
You can be 10 minutes late. It's fine.
It's only 10 minutes. But what else did we play? I mean, we had all of our favorites that we brought still.
Yeah.
Gosh.
No, I think during that time we were I wasn't playing as many games because I was working. I think that was the case. We weren't playing that many. We were playing maybe like two. I mean, during that time, that was when Rahdo Runs Through was starting, and I was putting up maybe 1 or 2 videos a month.
Okay.
And I don't think we were playing much more than that. Because we were still just kind of finding where the vegetables are bought. And you were learning a new career, and I was at a new company and all that. I think we were not really playing very many games. And it wasn't until that the fallout happened and the government scandal that I was at the epicenter of erupted that led to all kinds of stuff. I'm building it up for effect. But there's a kernel of truth to what I just said. And we said, oh, well, let's now move to Marshallthorne and let's make Rahdo Runs Through a real thing. And it became a job for both of us, trying to make a career out of it. And it's interesting, you went to Mdina, not to Marshallthorne. Yeah. I mean, how did you feel about the Mdina experience versus the Marshallthorne experience? Because that was a big shift.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I'm also thinking, when we went to Mdina, like I said, a lot of my mental energy was going to what is this lamp working thing?
Right, learning new skills.
All of that. You were busy doing your own thing, and then we would play together. So there was just a lot less, I think, when you start throwing 3 or 4 games at me a week, and I have to learn them all, and everything, that's just a lot more mental activity. Yeah. And I don't mind that, it's good.
I would say that was the case when we were in Marshallthorne, too. When I started doing this full time.
Yeah.
And yet still there was something about the magic of Malta that I think you had more mental bandwidth. You for a year were able to play Gloomhaven every week.
Yeah.
Multiple times. You had enough bandwidth that you allowed yourself to and it's kind of hard to say, and it is getting more into the personal, but if back in that mode, where you literally had a different CPU load on your noggin, would you still say, yeah, I'd rather have the game that kind of is a slow build up and it's nice and simple and I do some stuff as opposed to the boom, here's a big toy to play with.
Okay, well that
figure it out.
Ties into the kind of games we like to play, like sandbox games, where you just start out with absolutely everything and all of the options available to you, versus a game that kind of spoon feeds you different skills as you get better. So I think we've decided we prefer the kind of game that does sort of restrict you a little bit and you build up a
game that gives you goals, basically. Yeah. As opposed to saying you can do anything you want, everything is equally of value, just experiment and tinker with it and have fun.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but that is something that neither of us respond to.
Yep. So because that has been consistent, I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
Which is the smaller.
All right. Okay. Well, let's see. Me, I prefer a big crunchy thing. Give me a big gigantic mechanism and oh my gosh, how am I going to solve this problem? That's what I actively, my least favorite thing about Clank is, to me it feels like, oh, we got to go through this half hour of just before anything interesting is happening.
I think they've adjusted that a bit though, haven't they?
Not really. Clank is Dominion played at a quarter of the speed. Because there's, I got to figure out, and I got stuck in a crystal cavern, and I got to get over here, and now I can finally get the thing, and but I'm not going to show up until I make it through the deck. Whereas, Dominion has all of that, but you're through your deck after 2 turns, and you're starting to see your cool new cards, and nothing's getting in your way other than how you choose to build your deck. I don't know. But me, I would rather just have a complete toy to start playing with rather than build a toy.
I think of that as kind of all of the game manuals you read.
What does that mean?
You read the whole game manual and
Yeah.
try and figure out how to put the game together.
Yeah, so I guess that's reflective of the same thing.
Yeah.
Sure. Alrighty, number 2 from, who was it? Shonks. What is your favorite randomization mechanism in games, Honey Pie? You should know this.
That would be dropping stuff in a tower and seeing what comes out.
Not a dice tower, but I don't know what it's called, a tower. The Amerigo Tower, the Shogun Tower, the Wallenstein Tower, There's only been like 5 or 6 games that have ever done it. Most recently, Feld did it again with Marrakesh. The idea of a tower with shelves and random things get stuck and they'll show up at a random time later. And so what you thought you were getting out, nope, you're getting something different. That is your favorite.
Yeah.
I would be inclined to agree. When that works, and unfortunately it's a very, very sensitive thing, and due to production issues, it can be kind of problematic, but when it works, it is the best. I love it. Do you think someone can be part of the industry without attending conventions, at least at the beginning? I don't think you have anything to say about this. Well, certainly, I'm part of the industry, and I didn't attend conventions for a lot of time, so the board game media thing does not require you to attend conventions. But I think what Shonks is asking is, can I be a real professional working in making games? And that is going to be much harder. Your best bet is to attend conventions and make real world connections with those publishers. Donate your time. Say, hey, I will run your booth, and I don't expect anything other than, can you just get to know me, and maybe somewhere down the road you will, potentially throw some work my way, or it could lead to something. I mean, that's the case for a lot of people. I guess the only other thing without going to actual conventions is there are opportunities to become testers for games, where publishers will send out prototypes to their network of testers. And if you do a really good job giving back really good feedback that really impresses and makes a big impact on the game, that would be a possibility. Now, how do you become that? That I have no idea. I would say the best way to do it, go to conventions. And once again, talk to the publishers. But it seems like that's something, it's not like something I've ever seen publishers putting out a call for, hey, we need testers for this game. Maybe it's something like, there's nothing. If you go to Board Game Geek, if you go to the general forums and specifically the designer subforums, you will see independent designers all the time talking about all kinds of stuff, putting up their games, looking for feedback. You could say, you know what, I'm going to become a professional tester of amateur independent games. And start doing that and spend your time doing that and get a hang of it and prove to actual publishers that, look, I made this game better. Here's what this designer said. Maybe you'd like to send me a prototype of your next game and I can do it for your real commercial games. I think that would be a viable path.
Well, it goes back to what you were doing when you were in the video game industry too, is you wanted to see potential employees who had some original thoughts of their own about how to improve whatever it is.
Yep. Yeah, I am definitely 100% aping what I would tell people when they want to get a job in the video game industry. You want to get a job in the video game industry, make video games. There is nothing stopping you from doing it on your own in your home. There are so many tools for free that let you make your own game or add-ons to existing games. And I always responded most not to the CVs that say, look, here, I went to this 4-year school, I went to Full Sail, and I've got all these things, and here's all the projects I did. My first thought was, what projects did you do on your own outside of school? Those are the ones I want to see. Those are the ones that proved your drive. And I think there's probably something that could be done similarly with the board game industry as well via independent development. Start signing up. When publishers post, go to Kickstarters, where publishers have posted, like, this is a work in progress rule book. We swear it's a work in progress. We understand. Take that thing and fix it. And send them, hey, I don't expect anything. I just wanted to give you some feedback. Here's a bunch of things where I think you went wrong. Do that. Impress them. Well, geez, maybe we should send this to that kid next time. And after a few of them, maybe they'll start paying you to write their rule books for you. I think there are ways to do that. All of it's going to be enhanced if you go to conventions and see these people in real life. But you don't necessarily have to. Okay, number 4, says Shonks. Do you know of any worker placement games where the workers are on the board at the start and stay out the whole time? I'm really terrible at answering questions like that. I feel like that must exist. I know there are worker placement games where, yeah, the whole game, like Kanban is a game where you have one worker, you. And it starts off the board, but once you put it on the board, it will stay on the board forever, and you just have to move from one place to another. We just played Bot Factory. It's the same idea. It's just like a stripped-down Kanban. So there are games like that, but I think you're talking about more of a, oh no, I've got 5 workers, and they're constantly jostling around. That's an interesting idea, and honestly, I can't think of one.
There have been terrain ones where we've put our thing down and then start moving around, but I think they can be killed and come off.
Yes, inevitably. I think it's so woven in to the DNA that I don't know if it's occurred to anybody to say, hey, how about my 5 workers will never come home. Because Colonist is a great game where, again, it's a single. I think if you play long enough, you can get maybe 2 or even 3. So Colonist would be an interesting one. But I think and even then, I think there are circumstances where they will come off the board and you're like, and Shanks, that's a really cool design idea. I want to see a game about that. I want to see a game that's a business simulation where, my people never come off the board. I'm just always moving them from one department to another. That's a really interesting idea. All right. Number 5, it sort of feels like board games are at the point video games were in the 90s. Still niche, but starting to become bigger part of the mainstream culture. Do you think board game hobby will ever make that transition in the way video games did with Angry Birds or Animal Crossing? Or have we hit our apex? I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, Hey Pie. First of all, I would say video games were definitely not niche by the mid-90s because you are forgetting the 80s. There were literally top 10 pop songs about video games. Pac-Man Fever, driving me crazy. Pac-Man Fever, going out of my mind. I still have all the lyrics emblazoned on my brain. That was a true worldwide cultural phenomenon. And even though they kind of fell back, I don't think anybody forgot about video games. So, no, we are nowhere close to where video games were in the 80s, let alone the 90s or today. Board games have not engendered a true cross-culture, non-geek niche. Nothing has come close. I mean, the biggest games we've got, Catan, Wingspan, there's a lot of normies out there playing those games, but there's no song on the radio about them. They have not become, video games in the 80s. Half the movies in the 80s were set in video arcades because they were just so woven into not geek culture, but pop culture. And board games are not there yet. I think we will eventually get there, but there's one major thing stopping that from ever happening, and that is rulebooks. Yes. Rulebooks. And it kills me that Dized, D-I-Z-E-D, is an app that can teach you how to play board games and let you throw away the rule book and basically be a human being, the equivalent of a human being sitting at the table, walking you through the game. And it's not perfect, but it's the best thing we've ever seen. And honestly, by now, they've been going for like half a decade. Every single game should be on Dized. And Dized should be, everybody has it on their smartphone so that nobody ever has to read a rule book again. Also, just the physicality of rule books is holding us back. I have a friend who was, publishes games, and he was talking about, for my next game, I'm thinking about just not putting a rule book in the box. And saying, hey, here's the piece of paper, go to this website. Because at the end of the day, you can make such an amazing, easy-to-use rule book if it is a website.
And you can search it.
You can search it, you can follow links, you can put animated GIFs, you can put videos, you can have audio, you can have video, you can make
examples of all the weird stuff.
Yes, and and with like interactive things, you can say, well, what if I do this and what if I do that? You can get ChatGPT and have it literally answer questions that you type in if it understands your rules. There's so many things you can do that are impossible, and yet what every publisher does.
Let alone all of the weight of the paper manuals and the several languages.
Yes, it's ridiculous. It's such a waste of money. Everybody has a every board gamer has a laptop. Every board gamer has a smartphone. It is ridiculous and honestly unconscionable that we are wasting so many resources and making games so much harder to learn. And what do publishers do? They say, oh, no, go to Board Game Geek. You can download the rules. And what do you download? A freaking PDF.
That you can't search.
That you can't. Half of the time, you're right. Sometimes you can search because you can save PDFs so they're searchable or not. And often they just don't. So it's basically just a bunch of bitmaps, which is useless. But even if you can search, it's all from start to finish, 2 columns. And it's like, okay, I got to scroll from one column to the other. And it's like, no, that if the internet would not have taken off if the internet were presented like Board Game Geek manuals.
Yeah.
Or board game manuals. Board game manuals are terrible holdovers from engineering manuals because board games used to be designed predominantly by engineers.
Yep.
And their habits and their techniques are what inform how to do board game manuals now. And it is the worst. It is so dumb. Everything about almost without exception. Every single board game manual is done incorrectly, starting with the fact that you can't go to the publisher's website and get a digital version of that, which is not a downloadable PDF, but a website devoted that has every picture being animated, that has videos I can click, that has, when there's the notes from the author, record them. Let me hear the author's voice. Let me make a physical, real human connection. Multimedia is... We can make games so easy and interactive and fun to learn. But nope, publishers just pub the thing and then they give Rodney Smith a lot of money to have him make a teaching thing, which basically, Rodney is great. And everybody who does how to plays are great. But by and large, almost all of them just very dutifully recreate the existing engineering-led structures of existing manuals that do not get to the true nature of how human beings learn. They are not written by teachers. They are written by engineers or people who have been inspired by how engineers have done things. And it's absurd. Anyway, so when my friend suggested I should do this, I'm like, oh my God, you should totally do that. But he realized I will get ripped apart. I will get destroyed. It will be completely unacceptable and my project will fail on Kickstarter. And I realized, yeah, he's right.
I can't even remember what the project was.
It's from a few years ago. But anyway, I said, well, you know what you can do? You can say, hey, I am making this the best, most easy to read manual of all time because it's a literal website. The thing that we all use every day to consume and learn information, which is nothing like a board game manual. If you must have a manual, go to this website, pay $7, and you can print it out and they'll send it to you anywhere in the world. Because there's so many print on demand shops.
Yeah.
So you could do that. And I said, do that. Basically externalize the cost of the rule book that isn't necessary anyway. He still didn't do it. I still think that is the future because the only thing, back to your question, Shonks, it's keeping us from breaking through to pop culture is our stubborn insistence on sticking with engineering manuals masquerading as a board game, learning how to have fun. Right. And so do I think, all right. So anyway, that's what's keeping us from breaking through. And until we crack that nut, it'll never happen. Again, DIZE, D-I-Z-E-D is fantastic. It should have taken off by now. It should have gotten the entire wholehearted support of the entire industry. By now, there should be publishers saying, we didn't even bother with the manual. We just give you the DIZE module because it'll teach you how to play the game like a human being would.
Yeah, I mean, even just thinking about saving the shipping cost of the manual in the box.
Yeah, exactly. Or like I said, the 5 different ones for the 5 different languages and all that. Yep. It's absurd that we are so backwards there. Anyway, though. Last one, I think. Yes, from Will. Since you mentioned preliminary top 10 includes Jen's preferences, what is your personal top 10 and why do you combine them? You know what? Hey, this should not be here. I just saw the word Jen and I put it here. I'm going to move back that up because I'm doing things out of order. That was Will, I said. So between Ramon and Zod, I'll answer that question for Will later because we are done with the gaming stuff, but we're not done yet. Hang on, folks. We'll be right back with the personal question. Unless you don't care about personal stuff. We already got a little personal already. Yeah. In which case, if you'd like to get out now, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Send more questions to questions@rahdo.com, and we'll see you next month or talk to you next month, everybody. So long, bye-bye. Otherwise, hang on. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody, we are back. Jen just went and got me some water. Thank you very much, honey pie. I got a little agitated there. I needed to cool down. Although Jen needs to warm up because she just put on a sweatshirt, which is interesting.
Yep.
Is it cold in here?
Oh.
I could probably take this thing off now. I'm all revved up. Anyway, we're on to the personal questions. Starting with one from Alex. Alex was very, very kind to say, hey, you don't have to use my name, because she knows I've got one right there on the table. I could have said these are from Dave, her boyfriend, since they listen together. But no,
Aww.
It's from Alex. And that seems to work pretty consistently.
Yeah, we'll have to use that in the...
Alex asks, yeah, doesn't even pick up on that. Alex yeah, all right. Alexa says, I grew up playing The Sims and have continued to play it as an adult. Can you talk about your involvement with developing The Sims? What were your thoughts on the Sims franchise today? I don't even know if you've ever played Sims. Have you, Honey Pie, even though I worked on it?
Well, I've played Sims,
yes. A little bit, but
yeah.
You never got into it, I don't think.
No.
Oops.
But I think even I did play it before you did that. Before you did your...
Here's the situation. I was... working as the creative director of Edge of Reality Games, sadly no longer with us, in Austin, Texas. And we got approached by... we were primarily known at that point for making conversions of existing games to other platforms. Like they did the N64 versions of Tony Hawk, and as opposed to the PlayStation one and stuff like that. And they'd done some other stuff, and they'd hired me on because I had my siphon filter experience, and they said, hey, we can do new things. But it's interesting, one of the first things that we were approached by when I got there was, hey, can you make The Sims work? It's impossible. If we will bring you on, you will be, I believe, either the third or the fourth independent developer who has been hired by us to translate the Maxis developed PC Classic to consoles, which required so much technical stuff. It was absolutely... I think word was spreading that it was an impossible task. But we had the company had a development of, hey, it was mostly a tech-led company. They had done other impossible things, and so they signed on. And so, I had nothing to do with the technical stuff, but it was literally a miracle. Jason... Should I say his name? Yeah, he's in the credits. Jason Yenowine, our lead programmer, he basically locked himself in his office for 6 months, didn't talk to anybody, and came out and said, I've done it. I have actually transplanted Edith, the core engine for Sims, from PC with all of its sloppiness to console with its extreme efficiency. So while he was working on that, and the other programmers were working on other projects like Pitfall and whatnot, my main job as the creative director was, right, assuming this can be done, because we don't know if it can be done, what has to be done with The Sims to turn it into a viable console experience? And for me, what I argued right from the there were two big design creative tasks that had to be resolved. One, you do not have a mouse and keyboard. You have dual analog stick controllers. So that was my first thing. My first job, I pretty much invented the idea, which has now become incredibly standard, of using the D-pad not for... no game did this before me. Using the D-pad, as far as I know, I'm pretty sure. Not for moving or stuff, but just for bringing menus up. Hey, if I hold left, it shows me this menu. If I hold right, it shows me that menu. That went on to become an incredibly common thing. And as far as I know, I invented that. And at the same time, since you don't have a mouse, which is pretty much as close to a conduit to your brain as an interface can be, you've instead got analog sticks you have to move around. The big thing I argued for was the cursor can no longer be a two-dimensional construct on top of the three-dimensional world. It has to be a three-dimensional object. You have to feel like, oh, the cursor, which became like a glowing shaft of light, like the end of a Marvel movie, that you just moved around, and when it got close to things highlighted. It feels like, oh, I'm in the world now. That's me moving around, because that was just more conducive to using analog sticks rather than trying to use analog sticks as a 2D overlay. Other people had by that point, had done Command and Conquer and Warcraft and other games that were mouse-led, and they said, hey, we're just going to make it look a mouse, and it was terrible. Like, no, it has to become 3D. Pikmin subsequently went on and really did an amazing job. Or maybe I took inspiration from Pikmin. I don't remember the timing, but I was really impressed by Pikmin as an example. But anyway, so that was my first thing. Resolving how to interface in true 3D with a controller that Sims had never been designed for. The other thing that had to be resolved was This was a strong feeling I had. Sorry, honey pie. No, hopefully this is of interest to you. I don't know.
Of course
You very rarely got insight into my actual job. So here you go. Years later, this is what I was working on. When I was at Nintendo as a gameplay counselor, among other things, the SimCity came out for the Super Nintendo. And it was an amazing product. It was a very dutiful recreation of the original Sims. But they did one thing. They said, hey, if your city ever gets 1 million people in it, however you want to do it, you can build a Mario statue. That was it. It gave the game an objective. And as a gameplay counselor, I can't tell you how many hundreds of calls I fielded from people who got Sims and said, you gotta help me. I can't get the Mario statue. I can't win unless I get the Mario statue. And of course, the concept of winning was antithetical to Sims, which was the very definition of a toy box. It was literally a box of Legos in digital form, and you just did whatever you want. And they just kind of as a gag threw in this Mario statue for Super Nintendo, and I pointed to that. And I ultimately had more than one meeting with Will Wright, and I had to convince him that no, I know you've always pushed back. Maxis is against the idea of objective-driven gameplay or giving players goals and giving them the opportunity to win. And I'm like, look, I lived it. As a 20-year-old, I had people crying on the phone. They couldn't do it. That's how compelling it was. And so we have to do that. And so my two big accomplishments were, coming up with a completely new controller paradigm and interface for consoles, which I don't think anybody had done at the time. And then also convincing one of the premier can do whatever the heck they want, quirky offbeat designers and design houses, Maxis of, hey, everything you always fought against? We really need to do that here. So once those were done, I was largely off the game. I got that initial stuff going. Now, the problem was they always told us, you have no time. We got to get this game out in just under a year. You're not going to have any time. You're not going to have any resources. So my best bet, if we're going to do objectives, here's what I'm going to say we do is, it is 95% Sims. But there is literally, we introduce one thing, a to-do list. The equivalent of, and it's like, oh, hey, anybody in their home life has gotta pick up the kids from school, gotta, make sure they get an A, gotta get the groceries or whatever. That we literally give players a to-do list that is just a list of simple things. It could literally be randomly generated, and players feel like, okay, well, once I've done 2 things, hey, I unlock 3, 4, and I get a special bonus, and now I can put a lamp, or I can build the second floor, or whatever it is.
Get a lamp.
It's just like, we gate things behind completing these objectives. It'd be a very simple system. The reason I pitched that was because with the budget and schedule they gave us, that was literally the only thing that was possible. There was nothing else we could do. And now I got nonstop pushback from EA. It was actually a producer at EA, not at Maxis, who was on board with me and said, yeah, objectives are the thing, but you can't do that. We have to tell stories. We have to, get people involved in drama. We have to turn Sims into a real soap opera that we've created for them that they can navigate. And I'm like, yeah, that's amazing, but it is impossible with the budget and the schedule and the manpower requisitions that I have. And so I'm still pushing this. And go ahead and do that, and then, at some point I basically stopped working on it day to day, because I had Pitfall: The Lost Expedition to work on.
Which was awesome!
Thank you, honey pie. Jen, my favorite game I ever did for Jen was Pitfall: The Lost Expedition. Eventually, that EA producer got his way, and he got the budget extended, and he got the schedule extended, and suddenly, like half of the scripters, we had one scripter. We had the budget for one scripter that we hired and taught how to use the EA scripting system. Again, it was called Edith, this engine. And his name was Tom. He was fantastic, but he couldn't do it all. It was impossible. And eventually, this EA producer said, hey, you know what? I have recruited half of the Maxis staff. They're now working on your game now, doing all the scripting. I'm like, oh, well, if you could have told me that right from the get-go, we would have designed this together, and I wouldn't have fought you every step of the way. And like, well, we didn't believe you could actually do the tech anyway, so you can get it. It wasn't until Jason finally came out and said, I've done it! Okay, boom. Check written, let's go crazy. And so, ultimately, the original Sims on PlayStation 2 and Xbox and GameCube, I got the initial ball rolling, and once they started going, I gave feedback. Much the same way I give feedback on board games these days. When I get a prototype from a publisher, I say, you should really do this, that, or the other thing. But it was really the baby of that EA producer, really sharp guy. I still worked with him off and on. I remember one time I made a trip out to Activision to make a presentation, and afterwards I was on the beach at Santa Cruz, and I ended up having to do a 2-hour phone call with him because he was stuck on, well, how should this work? What should be the results of this? And we've got this weird conundrum for chapter 3, can't lead into chapter. And so occasionally I did some back and forth with him, but mostly my job was done. So that, to answer your question, Alexa, was my involvement with the developing of Sims. And it was a very weird and interesting experiment, and it worked out very, very well. And unfortunately, I left Edge of Reality before the really big Sims checks started showing up. Because much to Jen's chagrin, we suffered all the pain and heartache of being away from each other for 50 weeks a year. And very rarely did I stick around long enough to get those bonus checks.
Yep.
Because, oh man, Sims made a lot of money. The console version of Sims. Alrighty. What are my thoughts about the Sims franchise today? I have not looked at Sims since then. I don't know what the situation is with Sims. It'd probably be very interesting. My thoughts are, why is there not a Sims board game? It's absurd to me that it does not exist. How could that have not? Why hasn't Alderac Entertainment or Czech Games Edition or somebody or Asmodee gone to EA and said, hi? You're seeing more and more video games show up, like Skyrim. Hey, Skyrim makes a great... there is no game better suited to turn into board games than The Sims, and yet we still don't have it. It's very confusing to me. Anyway, continuing on, Alex then says, my boyfriend and I are... Hey, honey, this is you. You're up. Heading to the Pacific Northwest. Several different areas, Oregon and Washington, for the first time this summer. Are there any board game-related things to do? Or any other recommendations or can't-miss things to do?
Well...
I don't think you guys have anything to say about
Portland is really
Guardian
nice.
Games in Portland is great. If you want to go to my personal mecca, go to Blue Highway Games, which is the game that changed the course of Jen's and my game store. Yeah, because that's where they refused to sell me Travel Scrabble and instead sold me a copy of Pandemic, and that changed the course of Jen's and my life. So there's a bunch of great stores, but I couldn't tell you beyond that.
No, not really.
Yeah, but anyway, she also added, can't miss things to do in the Pacific Northwest in general.
Well, it's so beautiful here, really.
In the summer.
Yeah. There's, on Facebook, there's a thing called Only in Your State. And it has, so you can type in Only in Your State and start following them, whatever, for Washington or Oregon, and they will show, where hot springs are, or where beautiful waterfalls are, or whatever. So that would be one thing to check out. And
the point of that is, hey, these are things you can't get anywhere else. You want the really unique things about this state, go to, what's it called?
Only in Your State.
Go to Facebook, do a search for Only in Your State, and you should be able to get to Washington, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right.
I think they've got one for every state.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you checking it out?
I am checking it out. Only in Your State. All right. So if I do that, it comes to... All right, so Only in Your State is a news and media company. How many things have you heard today? 23 hidden gems to explore across the U.S. So, and it goes to a webpage. If I go to that webpage, then I can choose my state. Hey. This is literally onlyinyourstate.com. And apparently, there's nothing more enchanting than a winter getaway in this Washington small town.
Nothing more enchanting.
Over 5 miles of trails and unique ecosystem, this underrated Washington State Park, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I think Jen has answered your question, Alexa. Go to onlyinyourstate.com. How long have you known about this? Why haven't we used this?
We have.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
On stuff like, it's places that we've met Dad and Aunts for lunches and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
But now we've got a motorhome, so we will be doing more of this.
I imagine so.
As we head out.
Okay. Well, there you go. Obviously, if you're in Seattle, Pike Place Market. I don't think we could say anything that just wouldn't be incredibly obvious. Yeah. It's interesting. We had more, I think, unique offbeat things in Malta. Like going to that salt mine, or not the salt mine, but the salt quarry. Yeah. Really weird offbeat things. But honestly, even though we've lived probably more of our adult lives in the Pacific Northwest than anywhere else in the world, I think we have a very facile, top level, just do these really obvious things that are on everybody's list.
Yeah, well, I think that's always the problem when you live somewhere. Is you never you don't act like a tourist there.
Yep.
You have to go somewhere and be a tourist to really find the cool stuff.
Yep.
So be a tourist.
There you go. Alrighty. But anyway, onlyinyourstate.com, Alexa, I think is going to get you going. Alrighty. Alan says, listening to my ratings or lack thereof of movies. Rankings of or lack thereof for movies. Can't remember if you saw this one. Oh, yeah. It was in the title. I didn't copy the title over. It was Everything Everywhere All at Once. What did we think? Yeah, it's fantastic. I think it deserves all the hype. It is, of course, a more creatively engaging experience than the Multiverse of Madness. Very funny that those two movies came out within a few weeks of each other. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. Jen, one of her friends said, boy, everybody needs to see this. And Jen said, have we watched it? I'm like, yes, honey pie, we did. And I described pretty much the whole thing to her, and she didn't remember any of it. So clearly and in fact, she didn't want to watch it. I kind of made her watch it. And I think at the end she begrudgingly said, yeah, I guess that was better than I thought it was going to be. Which is too bad, because I think it is an incredible, rapturous joy of discovery, everything everywhere all at once, and it deserves all the kudos it gets, Alan. Darren says, watching you in the Gen half of the last podcast, you look tired and depressed. Hope you're okay. What? Is that the non-Rahdo Richard we saw there? I don't know, Darren. Let's take a look. Let's see. What was it? The last podcast you said, right? So that's rtt.rahdo.com. Let's come back over to the browser. And that was this. He said last month.
I was sick. You might have been getting sick.
Were you sick? Oh, all right. So let's just skip over to. Here we go. I don't know. What do you think, Honey Pie? I mean, not listening to myself, it's weird. I kind of look like I've maybe just been crying a little bit. Of course, maybe I have. You never know with this podcast. Let's see. Let's start out with Jen.
You can tell this is the Jen part because I'm on the screen there.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Okay. So I think, is this where we started? Because I don't know, maybe there was, I mean, although if there was, I'm sure that Darren would have noted. Yeah, of course, you cried that time. But okay, so do I look more tired and or depressed there to you, Honey Pie? It's interesting. I mean, are the shadows in my eyes a bit more? You know what? I look a lot more pale.
You do.
I look very pale there, which is going to be a trick of the lighting.
Well, I remember just recently we had talked about how you had this weird coloration in your cheeks.
That's true. Now, I always have a bit of coloration. I mean, I've got it right now. But, I mean, it was, a couple of weeks ago you said, wow, that weird brown spot on your cheeks is really super pronounced.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you can see it right now a little bit. And it's not like you can kind of see it there, too.
Well, what's the date on this? When did you
when was this posted? This was postado. Let's say I need to go to the actual video, not the playlist, because the playlist won't tell me. This was, no, YouTube, just let me go to the video. No, not the playlist, YouTube. Jeez. All right, there we go. All right, if I just bring it down a bit. Okay, now I've shrunk it down too much, and you won't let me go. Oh, for the love of God.
4 weeks ago.
4 weeks ago, yes. It doesn't say when.
Well, I don't know. I know I was coming down with the flu. You might have also been coming down with the flu.
You had the flu 4 weeks ago? Has it been with us that long? I don't remember. I'm sure we would have talked about it and said, oh, by the way, folks, Jen's a little under the weather. And I'm sure Darren said, well, hey, if Jen said she was under the weather. So I bet you we didn't talk about it, or else Dan would have pointed that out. But yeah, I mean, just comparing this video to that video, I just look significantly more pale. And I think that is maybe accentuating. That would be my best guess. Right? What do you think?
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm looking at this and I feel like I'm crying the whole time. I feel like my eyes are wetter than normal. And I guess maybe, again, that's just a reflection of the paleness. That's my best guess. I don't know. But no, I don't think I was tired or depressed.
Yeah, looking at that now, I can see you and you.
Oh, yeah.
It's not that different. A little bit more pale.
Yeah, I don't know.
You even wearing a green shirt?
Oh, yes, yeah. Yes, I am. Well, I wear a lot of green shirts. I have a lot of green shirts. But I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I feel like the contrast is sharper here, so things are more distinct. But yeah, I mean, I seem very animated and agitated like normal, but I do feel like my eyes look like I think maybe they do kind of look like they're tired. And I couldn't tell you what that was, Darren. I don't know. I don't recall. Generally speaking, if I'm down, I'll just come right out and say it. As I've been mentioning several times for the last few weeks, that I'm going to be a bit more low energy because I'm getting over this stupid flu. But I don't remember there being any particular problem. So, Darren, I don't know. I'm not saying it wasn't there. But it wasn't me, babe. Gerald says, this is not one for Jen. Would I watch the X-Men animated series from the 1990s? Do I think I would enjoy it more today than I did with Marvel during my childhood? Well, it wasn't during my childhood. It was during my adulthood. In the 90s, I was in my 20s. Anyway, during your childhood, as you probably are more concerned about Discrimination Day than yonks ago, the subject of X-Men are all about. Oh, I mean, I've never really watched the X-Men, so I guess that makes sense that they probably were a bit more mature than other 90s era cartoons because they tried to stay true to using mutants as an allegory for race relations and all of that. And that's great if they did that. But honestly, no, I think, if anything, I would appreciate it less because honestly, between you and me, and don't tell anybody else, Gerald, because I will have my geek license revoked. I can't go back and watch the old Paul Dini Batman the Animated Series that I thought was so great. And it was, of course, incredibly innovative and ahead of its time and all of that, and really influential. But yeah, to me, they do still feel too, for kids. And I imagine X-Men would feel even more so. And I know the X-Men animated series is coming back. It's actually a pure sequel to wherever the original series was, and that's great for people. But I've never cared for the X-Men. I've just never really drawn me in. It's not entirely true. For a brief window, I was kind of into X-Men in the early 80s, because I had some little black and white X-Men collection comics of all new X-Men, like 1 through 3 with Krakoa. And as a kid, I thought, oh, that's really cool. But it's just because it's the only comic book I had, and I read it over and over again. But it's only because I didn't have comics that I really would have preferred, like Spider-Man or whatever. It's nothing against X-Men. They're great, but they just never pulled me in. I was really into the New Mutants for a while, back when Bill Sienkiewicz was the artist. But that was mostly because of Bill Sienkiewicz's art, not the actual characters of the writing. Sorry, Honey Pie. We'll find one for you.
Sorry.
Joe says, this is not gaming related. I was wondering, have you watched the new show Alaska Daily? It centers around missing, murdered Indigenous women. It is a very cool show. If you have seen it, what are your thoughts? If not, I can recommend it. I am aware of it, if I recall correctly. Doesn't it star the really acclaimed Academy Award-winning actress who was in the boxing movie? I cannot think of it. And the transgender movie, Boys Don't Cry, right? Oh, who is that actress? Who is amazing? Hilary Swank? Is that right? Now I got to look it up. Tell you what, we're going to pause. I haven't watched it. We're going to watch the trailer so Jen can have something to say about it. Okay, just watched the trailer. It was Hilary Swank. My memory did not fail me. Honey Pie, we have not watched it. What are your thoughts, though, having watched the trailer?
I would like to watch it.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I think it looks good. It looks like a couple of strong female leads, hopefully took us and taking names and...
Mm-hmm. See, here's the thing. I was aware of the show, and I'm a huge Hilary Swank fan, and I had watched the trailer. The trailer seemed to me a little pat. In my experience...
Well, the first trailer was...
Well, the first trailer, that was a teaser. But in my experience, it's a really common go-to for dramatic, to me, false dramatic content to say, oh, there's a new person that questions everything, and no one will listen to them, and they got to fight uphill, and it's like... You know what? I've been the new person in a lot of places, and generally people are excited to hear about new ideas. And people tend to want to work together more than to get, oh, you're stepping on my territory. And to me, that always rings false. It's very rare that is actually earned. And I am generally more engaged and enthused and excited about dramas where, you know what? A bunch of really smart people work together right from the get-go. And all of that just filler BS just isn't there because I don't think it is as prevalent in real life as Hollywood would like one to think it is because it makes for cheap, easy drama. And that trailer kind of turned me off because it went through those beats of, okay, the bitter local journalist who thinks, well, I don't need your help, and like, yeah, you freaking do. And she's freaking brilliant. You should be excited to have her help you. And again, I'm not saying it's not earned, but I mean, to me, that just always... So when I watched the trailer, that kind of turned me off just because it's so pat. It's so by the book. There was an amazing miniseries on Netflix. Oh, what was it? Which was about 2 female lead detectives. And apparently it was...
the really sexy lady. You're talking about...
you didn't watch this with me. I watched it without you.
What's her name? Okay, you're going to have to pause. We'll have to figure this out.
All right. I'll be right back, folks. Okay, found the shows. The one I was referring to is Unbelievable, which is amazing. I did not watch it with Jen because it is incredibly heavy and incredibly harrowing and hard to watch. But it has two lead detectives who respect each other and understand each other. And where they do have friction, it comes about from a natural way because one is incredibly junior and the other is grizzled and senior. To me, the conflict between them always felt natural, and yet they worked together and nothing felt false. Unlike we got to tick the box, the person who's been there, so that was my problem with Alaska Daily. Plus, I figured Jen wouldn't want to watch it because of the fairly heavy subject matter dealing with murdered and missing Indigenous women, which I very much respect, and I think that's fantastic that this series is shining a spotlight on it to a much lesser extent I try to do by wearing t-shirts and raising lots of money for so I think that's all amazing. But anyway, that was why I never actually watched it, because the trailer kind of turned me off, and maybe that was unfair. That's what the marketing department decided to play up. Maybe that's only a very tiny element of the actual show.
Well, I like that it said that women come here to reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
And disappear from maybe something that was negative in their lives. So who knows how much of it's murder and how much of...
It's true. So you still want to give it a go?
I would at least give it a try.
Right, okay. Well,
I like strong female characters.
Ask again in a few months, Joe, and we'll be able to tell you. And in the meantime, Unbelievable is amazing, but incredibly hard to watch. And Jen's favorite, the one she was thinking of...
I think favorite, but I did enjoy it.
No, you really enjoyed Rebel, starring Katie Seagal as a kind of a fictionalized version of Erin Brockovich. Like, what did Erin Brockovich do after the movie was over, and she kept on doing the stuff?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, thank you for the question, Joe. It is now on the short list. Okay. Lance says, the way you say innovative is so interesting, and it hits the ears in a sharp way. Just curious, is that something that comes across from living in England? I believe it is. Honey Pie, could you say that word for me?
Innovative.
See, I can't say innovative. That just sounds wrong to me. That sounds so weird and clunky and broken. Innovative. It sounded okay when you say it, but coming out, does it sound right when I say it?
Yeah, you sound great.
This is a very innovative board game. These are really incredibly innovative game mechanisms. That sounds right?
Yeah.
See, to me that sounds... I can barely make my words form to say that. And I know it's because it said innovative in England, and somehow I picked that up. Because I'm sure I did not say that before we lived in England. Because that was Lance's question. Is something picked up from living in England? Are there other changes to the way we picked up from where we lived? Lance is from Texas and curious about our time in Austin if we ended up using y'all.
I love y'all.
I believe you made a conscious, concerted effort to try to start using y'all, but you could never really internalize it, right?
Well, we were only there for 3 years, but
yeah.
I use it more in typing.
Oh, sure.
Verbal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So did you pick up any tics? I don't think I picked up any tics in, from living, 3 or 4 or 5 years, however long we lived in Texas.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Y'all is just such an incredibly useful phrase.
It is. It's so inclusive and so friendly and very warm.
Gender agnostic. It's just perfect. But it, trying to use it in casual conversation, it feels very twangy, and it instantly just feels like, oh, I'm doing a parody of somebody from Texas kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I don't think, unless that's part of your overall aesthetic, it just doesn't feel natural coming out of one's mouth. But you're right. Using it in writing, I think it probably works very well.
Yeah.
Now, I can't remember what. I remember there was definitely at least one word that you say weird now because we lived in England. And I pointed it out to you in the past that, honey, you're not in England anymore. You don't have to say that. But do you remember what it is? I can't remember it now.
I don't know.
I know there was one, and the equivalent of me saying innovative, but I couldn't tell you what it was. Shoot, you don't remember at all?
I don't.
Because it was just that one word, but I don't remember. I'll have to keep an ear out for it. Or maybe Jen just stopped doing it eventually. Maybe she's finally got it out of her system. But I can't shake innovative, because innovative, that literally just sounds broken to me.
Well, like they say aluminium.
Yeah, I did not pick up aluminium. That always struck me as ridiculous.
Yeah, that was...
Anyway, though. Moving right along, Priscilla says, how do you and Jen like eggs in the morning?
Oh, we love them.
But how?
Anyway, any which way.
Pick one.
All right. Mainly fried. Or in quiche.
Wow, you went straight to fried. Because I was going to say fried is my preferred.
I know it is.
How did you know that?
So I lived with you for...
I wouldn't have said years. I wouldn't have assumed fried for you, though. Honestly, I would have assumed, because you generally tend to make quiche, but I guess that's just because it's easier.
It's so much easier.
It's more low maintenance.
Yeah.
But what about scrambled or what else is there?
scrambled is
There's
fine.
over easy and there's sunny side up and there's poached.
My sister loves poached.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think, yeah. I mean, yeah. Quiche is easiest.
Yeah. Just because it's pretty much you just put them in there and you walk away.
Yep.
And
Mix it all up.
Yeah.
Let it bake.
Yeah, but I mean fried, especially with just like a little bit of runny yolk still. Yeah. Just a little bit.
I know, especially if you're gonna have toast.
Yeah. So I guess we agree. Are there any ways you can do eggs that we're not thinking of?
Deviled eggs are wonderful. I love.
That's true.
egg salad.
Deviled eggs are fantastic. Let's see here. All right, here's a list: boiled, scrambled, poached, baked, basted, fried, sheared, coddled,
sure it is.
pickled, omelets, quiche, frittatas, souffles. 100 ways to cook an egg.
What is shirred?
Yeah, I don't know what shirred is. What are eggs?
I
Shirred. Looks like a soup. Shirred eggs. I don't want to actually make the thing. What is the meaning of shirred eggs? Cooked individually in cream and butter in a small ramekin.
Oh.
Well, I'm very interested in that.
It's basically poached, but in butter.
Yeah, let's try that. That sounds really cool. I like cream, I like butter, I like eggs.
Yeah, well, you get to do all the dishes then.
Maybe it's really, you mix it up, pour it into a ramekin. Or mix it, I don't know. Well, I might have a new favorite one. What else have we got? Alrighty. I just need a picture of everything. I mean, omelets are nice. Omelets are nice, but honestly, I've never really cared that much.
No.
You know, they always make a big deal at the buffet. Oh, the omelet bar, the omelet bar. I was like, it's going to take forever.
Yes.
It's not going to be that much better than just the scrambled eggs right over there.
Yep.
And I can just get the scrambled eggs and the peppers and the ham, and I can just scramble it up together. It's going to be practically the same.
It doesn't cook the vegetables if you just throw vegetables onto it.
Well, assuming
eggs.
they're already cooked, yeah. Asparagus quiche, béarnaise sauce.
I love béarnaise sauce.
Go away, advertisement. Shrimp carbonara.
Ooh,
Wait a minute, what is it? Oh, well, yeah, I guess eggs are in carbonara, of course. Yes, a carbonara. That is the only way to have our breakfast eggs. Is carbonara, obviously. Okay, this is getting, this is not having it. Yeah, this is things that have eggs in them. 15 ways, okay. So, just show me a picture of all of them. Alrighty, so hard-boiled. Hard-boiled are fine. I got no problem with them. I hate having to get the shell off, though. That's too much of a pain. Soft-boiled. What is soft-boiled?
It's the same as hard boiled, but just the yolk is still runny.
Oh, okay. All right. Hard scrambled. Soft scrambled.
I do not like soft scrambled. I do not like wet.
Oh, soft scrambled is where they put a bunch of stuff in.
I don't know, but I think it's when it's still
Well,
wet.
look at it. It's like bunches of butter and stuff. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's kind of like what you get at a Denny's or something like that. Yeah. And my Aunt Darlene, when we were growing up, that's how she did eggs. And it was such a cool treat. Because it was so different than what my mom did. So I kind of have a nice nostalgia soft spot for it. Perfect scrambled eggs. All right, omelets and frittatas, right? And those are fine.
Yep.
I guess I kind of like the idea of the frittata, just throwing a bunch of stuff in. It's kind of like a taco. That's kind of nice. Scrambled and hash, quiche, of course, just because of the convenience factor, sunny side up. I'm not a big fan.
No, if it's too runny and it's like going all over the place, I don't like it.
Yeah. Over easy. Again, it's okay, but still not a fan. Again, too much of a mess. Over medium, then you're getting into reasonable stuff. Over hard, well, isn't that just fried? All right, so what is poached?
Poached is when you do it in water.
When you do it in water?
Yeah.
Oh.
So basically it's in a water bath. And so it's very soft edges. Like fried gives you those kind of crispy edges.
Yeah, which
around.
I think we both prefer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever had poached, but it doesn't sound great. Baked or sheared. Sheared refers to the flat bottom dish in which they're cooked. Mixed with other ingredients. That sounds, so we've never tried that, right? Sounds interesting.
Well, I think I did some microwaved eggs for a while there.
Yeah.
And, you put a little bit of cheese in the bottom and a little bit of bacon and you throw an egg in there. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's kind of shirred.
Apparently this is basted.
So you're using it to steam cook the top.
Steam cook, yeah. Liquid or steam is used to thoroughly cook the egg without flipping. I guess that'd be interesting, but I don't think that's particularly appealing. Spanish fried eggs, which I guess is what we like because that's the first use of fried. Coddled eggs.
Oh, wow.
Cracked into a small cup or ramekin, heated in a water bath just below boiling. Depends on how long you cook them. Can achieve something akin to easy, medium, or hard yolks. Fancy with bean. All right, or use simple porcelain. I don't know. I guess that'd be interesting.
They're wonderfully creamy.
Yeah. So that seems cool. That seems kind of nice.
It says,
again,
meaning they're not overcooked, so they're going to be really moist.
Oh, which again, you don't particularly care for.
I don't.
Creamed eggs, reminiscent of creamed chiff beef on toast. Diced hard-boiled eggs with a white gravy made from bechamel sauce and served on toast.
This is not that. That's something else. That's obviously not that.
Well, I guess
that's it right there. That's creamed eggs.
Oh, is this coddled eggs?
I guess so.
Anyway, a lot of ways to do it. The 62-degree egg. Special equipment, like in immersion circulator.
Yeah, you barely got the white cooked on that.
Yeah. Fried. Okay. We've seen them all, and I think we both still appreciate fried the most. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All righty, Priscilla. Now you know. If you ever come and visit, you know what we expect. And you know what to expect.
Yep.
Probably quiche, unless you get lucky. And you get them some nice fried eggs. Okay. Ryan says, I was wondering if you've seen the short film The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, based on the book of the same name by Charlie Mackesy. I'd appreciate hearing your thoughts. If not, I think it's right up Jen's alley and you should check it out. Ooh. Well, you know what's going to happen. We're going to pause and we're going to watch the trailer because a few months ago, we actually watched the trailer recording and I got demonetized. So now, folks, you can go watch that trailer and join us in a second because I have not seen All right, so we'll be right back and tell you what we think, Ryan. Okay, now dry eye in the house. What do you think of the trailer, anybody?
I think that looks interesting. I'll enjoy watching it, but I already like the art style very much.
Yes, it looks beautiful. Like watercolors come to life.
Yep.
Actually, coincidentally, I have art from the original book here or the cover art. So
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It's a silly little thing, but always kind of every time I see something like that, why isn't it the girl and the mole and the fox? Why is it always the boy?
Maybe this is an old book that was.
Yeah, I suppose so. It just always strikes me. I mean, 90% of all media is still male-led. It's always, whether they're anthropomorphized animals or humans, 50% of the planet is...
More than 50%.
More than 50% of the planet is women. Why isn't it the girl land? But still, it looks absolutely beautiful. I'm sure it's a wonderful, charming, and heartwarming film about finding yourself and acceptance in others based on the trailer. Accepting yourself and others and all that. And I don't know. I guess it's a book for kids, so I don't know if it maybe be a little bit light.
Yeah, maybe.
But it looks like it'll be stunning to look at, if nothing else. So thank you for the suggestion.
Yep.
Ryan, we're getting all kinds of good suggestions this month. Okay, Shonks is back.
Oh, hi, Shonks.
Shonks says, what are your feelings about the new Discovery Infusion?
I'm so excited.
Are you aware of the new Discovery Infusion?
Of course I am.
Yeah.
Yes, they've done it.
They've done it!
We're hoping that it's repeatable and can be scaled up.
Yeah.
It would be awesome. I mean, that would just solve so...
Well, it's not would be.
Everything.
It will be. There's no choice about it. I mean, it works. It physically happens. They know it's just a matter, and we are very smart monkeys. We will figure it out, and in 100 years, energy will be clean and free to every human being on the planet.
Yep.
And what goes hand in hand with it is also cultured meat. That all of our food will be 100% clean and green and infinite. Effectively, because we will have infinite energy, we will therefore have infinite food and infinite resources for everybody. That is the reality of our species 100 years from now.
If we can make it.
If we make it. If we don't blow ourselves up in a nuclear war. And unfortunately, it's also the reality 100 years from now that we will have this incredible green future in a world that is not as nice as it should be. And it's a good thing we'll have that because we'll have such incredible widespread suffering because of climate, refugees, and all the rest of it.
Yes, but actually there are some good news. There's some good news.
Yes, there's always good news.
Yep.
That's true.
They were saying, I just saw, I can't remember exactly where, but it was on a Facebook link, that basically they figured out that the ozone layer over China will be fixed in a couple of decades.
Yep.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's 20 years away.
Yeah. Provided we don't blow ourselves up, we will ultimately fix everything. But these are generational projects. And so
if we could just sort this out right now and stop progressing down this road, it would be very helpful.
Yeah. For folks who don't know, fusion, which is an alternative form of generating energy from, messing around with the atomic structure of reality, they've done it. They, for the first time ever, after decades of work, have been able to create more energy than it cost. It cost X amount of energy, and they created X plus 5 for a very brief window that we literally created something out of effectively nothing. And now all that has to be done is scaled up to support billions of people. And that will happen. And that is the future. Certainly one that I hope to live for. Shongsen asks, I appreciate your positivity and passion for games. How do you maintain that perspective and keep from getting negative and cynical? Oh, I didn't finish your sentence. Passion for games in the community. How do you keep from getting negative and cynical? Stay away from the community. For starters. At the end of the day, I used to be a regular on Reddit. I used to be a regular on Board Game Geek. I used to be a regular on Twitter. And at the end of the day, as a species, we have not mastered the art of interaction online. 90% of all horrific flame wars wouldn't have existed if they were just people, if the exact same people were in a booth at a restaurant talking rather than through the internet.
I mean, have you even seen those videos of dogs and they're separated by a fence and they're back.
Yeah.
And then the camera pulls back a little bit and you can see that it's just a panel. And there's actually an open, and then the dog goes around the panel and has a drink of water and they're both just fine.
Yep, and the other one sniffs the other's butt and then everything's fine.
And then it comes back around to the other side of the panel and they're back.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, honestly, I try to, it was ultimately a self-defense mechanism that I had to walk away from most board game communities. I'm still on Board Game Geek, but the sole reason I am there is to learn information about games and not interact with people. It's not, all credit to Board Game Geek. They worked really, really hard to try to stifle out all that cynicism and negativity that just feeds, because human beings, we are hardwired to respond to bad news. Because when we were cavemen and women, when we were monkeys, bad news, paying attention to bad news keeps us alive. Yep. Paying attention to good news is, oh, yeah, that's great. Who cares? I'm not really worried because I don't have a concept of tomorrow. And I don't have something. And so our brains on the deep, amygdala level or whatever it is, are hardwired. Oh, bad news? Yes, more of that, please. It's like a drug. And so, there's all these quotes how negative news stories or lies spread with like 5 times the speed of telling the truth online. Just as a species, we don't get it. We do not understand. We've got maybe... What is the new generation? I think the new generation is the alpha generation. I saw a news article where I think it was Swedish schools. They have now put into their curriculum the concept of how to identify disinformation.
Yep.
Or misinformation. How to identify lies. And so kids are being taught that. So again, like before, this is a generational project. I'm sure this happened with the invention of the printing press. I am sure this happened on a smaller scale, but we were a smaller scale species back then, with the invention of clay tablets. Fake news! They scratch out on the clay tablet, and suddenly lies could spread faster than the truth because that's what we are hardwired to respond to. And ultimately, just for my own sanity, I had to unplug. I recently unplugged from Twitter. With all of Elon's ridiculous just absurdity, and that's putting it kindly. I'm like, every time I log onto this site, I am giving him money. I am saying I financially support the decisions he is making. And I was just like, okay, fine. Nothing here makes me happy. And why am I staying here and financially supporting this by occasionally seeing ads? So I turn that off. I am happier for it, as will 99% of all people on Twitter would be happier people if they literally just logged off and walked away. Same for Facebook. Oh. Facebook isn't as bad because Facebook was born from the idea of, no, you are there for your friends. And friends and family, it's fine. The problem is, Facebook, when you go to facebook.com, it doesn't give you your feed. You have to go out of your way to find a feed of, just tell me what my friends and family have said in the order they've said it. Yep. It obscures that and hides that from you, so it can feed you garbage. Now, of course, your friends and family might feed you garbage too, but at least if it's coming from your friends and family, it's something that you can internalize a different way. But it's best just to get away from all this stuff and let the Gen Alpha educate them how to be better citizens online, how to see through the BS. And in a couple of generations, the internet will be as valuable a communication tool as the clay tablet and the printing press and all the rest of it.
Oh, so I was looking around for my words of wisdom.
Yes, we haven't got to Jen's words of wisdom yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it took her like 40 minutes to find her words of wisdom this month. But apparently you found something on the way. Do you just want to switch to that one, or do you want to have a bonus words of wisdom?
If I can.
If you can find it?
Yeah.
You want to pause for a sec?
Yeah, just
all
a
right.
second.
Well, Jen gave a good college try, and it's disappeared. She saw it 3 or 4 times in her feed, and now...
It's gone.
It's gone forever.
But essentially it was basically, hey, if you're feeling unhappy or distressed, do not turn to the news media. Don't turn to your Facebook feed even. Rather, just go out and take a walk in nature, because nature has no agenda and no reason to sell you anxiety and fear.
Yes, that's the thing. Media peddles anxiety and fear. And that includes board game media too, when it boils right down to it. And life is too short to just play more games, have fun. Try to focus on, beacons of positivity. And if there's people who are criticizing stuff, focus on the ones who criticize with positivity, as opposed to just assume the worst of others. Saying, well, you know what? Hey, this is how I would have done it. I would have liked to have seen this or the other. Maybe in the future you could say it that way. You could say, oh, this was a bad thing done by a bad person, whatever. So I'm just, you do not need to keep, as soon as you see any whiff of negativity,
Go the other way.
Yeah. Is it doing you any good? Is kind of the way I tend to look at it. Righty. Okay. I see you guys are fans of British TV. Do you watch Taskmaster, Would I Lie, or QI? My wife and I are suckers for panel shows. I don't think we've ever watched a panel show. They're very popular. It's just like a bunch of mid-tier celebrities, comedians, and whatnot, and they sit on a panel and answer questions every week.
Kind of like what we do.
Yes, I guess. Yeah, actually. So those are very popular in England. We never really got into those. Do you have any suggestions for UK shows? We love Black Books, Miranda, Downton Abbey. We just finished Ted Lasso.
Oh,
not sure if that's really British TV, but it felt like it.
Yeah.
It's not, but yeah, we'll give it a pass.
Yeah, well, of course, there's all of the wonderful Making It shows. There's the Great Pottery Throwdown. There's a new thing called Making It at the Market, I think.
Make it at Market.
Yeah, which has gotten a little repetitive, but maybe it's just because I've sort of been watching one a night.
Yeah.
It's basically a young or an unexperienced maker is getting some tutorage and counseling about how to build their business.
Yep.
And it kind of briefly follows them over an 8-week period.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they kind of get the same advice over and over again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Teach some classes, get your stuff in some galleries, and... oh, by the way, we've got a show for you.
Yep.
Your work's going to be in this show.
Yep, and then their lives are turned around.
Yeah, I mean, it's
there's the
interesting,
woodworking show.
Oh, yeah.
What's that called?
Oh, I don't remember. But there's one where they go out into the woods, literally the woods, and make it. And then there's... No, the glass one is here in the States.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, we still own our house in England.
Yep.
And because of that, we still effectively have a TV license in England. That's really kind of covered by, the rent. And so we can basically use that plus NordVPN. That's the VPN we use to trick the internet into thinking we're in England. So we can just go to itv.com or bbc.com or Channel 4 or channel5.com and just, watch all these shows, because as near as I can tell, we're in England, and I can give our address if I need to for licensed stuff, which is mostly BBC stuff. And we don't really watch many dramas or comedies or anything. Yeah. But it's mostly like travel shows and craft shows.
Yeah.
Like right now, Jen's really hooked on Breaking Dad.
Mainly because they're driving this huge motorhome around.
It is practically the same model motorhome as us.
Yep.
And yet they're driving it through European streets, and it confounds us.
Yes,
and the new season just started where they're driving through Mexico, which we have yet to start watching. Like you really like this. That's Susan Calman can be a bit much.
Yeah, a little bit of her at a time is
fine.
fine.
So you like it when she's riding around in a motorhome, but again, mostly because she's riding around in...
going to see what's cool.
Yeah.
She is, yeah. We like Kirstie Alley and in her shows.
Oh, yeah. Kirstie Alley and Phil Spencer.
Phil Spencer, yes.
Is it Spencer?
It is. Well done.
The Love It or List It show and the...
Oh, we like Grand Designs. That's a lot of work that we never have to do. And you get the satisfaction of somebody building a house.
A lot of crazy rich people.
Yeah. We like... There's usually other famous celebrities that are driving around like Ireland or Scotland or whatever. So
lots of travel shows, lots of crafting shows, lots of building shows, real estate shows, not actual tabloidy.
Clarkson's Farm.
Oh, Jen loved Clarkson's Farm.
Oh my God,
she could not stop laughing.
Yes,
I mean,
you gotta watch
I've never
that.
seen her laugh as hard as Clarkson's Farm. But not really much in the way of dramas or anything like that. There was that sci-fi time loop one that I've talked about before on the podcast. Good. That was amazing. I can't think of the name of it now. But sorry, I don't know if that, from what you listed, seems like we're not necessarily watching the kind of stuff you watch, Shonks. All right, next up, Shonks says, my wife is on the first steps of transitioning from full-time, mind-numbing job into the world of handmade crafts. Do you have any advice for the beginning of that process? We're thinking local craft fairs and perhaps Etsy for now, but I figured I'd ask a seasoned pro for their thoughts and advice. I guess, can I suggest a British show called Make It... Is it Make It at Market? Let's look it up.
Something like that.
Make It at Market. Yep, Make It at Market. I'm assuming you're in England. It is on BBC One. The first season looks like it's going to have 10 or 12 episodes. And 15 episodes.
Ooh.
And every week it's a different crafter. Hey, she blows glass. Hey, they restore antique furniture or whatever it is. And it's really kind of look at them and get to know them, how they got started. And then, again, like I said, it's largely a repeat of the same type of stuff. The same type of stuff you just mentioned.
Yeah. What is your wife going to be making? Write back and let us know.
Handmade crafts.
I know, but...
Of an undetermined size.
Hopefully he'll tell us.
Well, whatever it is, chances are, over 15 episodes, they will make it at market, and they will tell your wife exactly what to do.
Yes. It'll be hold courses, get your stuff into galleries, and get on a show like this.
Local craft fairs, and perhaps Etsy for now.
There's something in England actually called Folksy that's more for the European market.
Instead of Etsy?
Folksy.
If you were in England right now, you would be trying to sell your stuff through... I assume you'd still try to sell internationally to Etsy, but you would be also on Folksy?
I think I would just also have a Folksy site. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But...
Why aren't you? Because it's too expensive to send stuff from America because of all the raising costs. Yeah.
But also, she might want to get on Facebook. There are a lot of groups that are specifically people who like whatever this particular, so for me, it's lampworking groups of people. And these groups range from, say, 2,000 to 15,000 members. And basically, we just do trunk shows on Facebook. Say
that word again.
Trunk shows.
Tell people what trunk show is.
A trunk show is where basically you get a day or two where you have everybody's you get the site, you get that group, and you can put pictures of your work online and sell them directly to the members of the group. So you're usually juried into the group. There's a moderator of the group who keeps an eye on things. People who are members of the group have said everybody agrees to the same rules, like, be polite, be nice. Pay, if you bid on something, actually pay for it. Those kinds of things. But it's really wonderful. I cannot believe that Facebook hasn't somehow monetized this.
Really?
Because we don't pay any fees to Facebook for the sales that happen on these
Because
groups.
these are just private groups.
Yeah, they're
Are
just
they
private
invite groups? So you have to get invited in, or you have to say, I'd like to join your group, and then you wait a few days and...
Yes, and you answer a couple of questions like, are you a maker? Are you a seller? Are you a collector? What are you? What are you hoping to get out of this?
Are these called a particular type of group?
No, I think if you just get on Facebook and type in, let's see. Pause a minute. Let's see if we can find one.
All right, Facebook.com. Boom. All right. Pick a craft.
Lampwork glass beads.
Well, that's your craft. Pick whatever. We don't know what Shonks' wife is doing, but you already know yours ones.
I know, but that's why I'm saying because I know how to find mine. So if we just type in lampwork glass beads, we can see if the ones that I'm familiar with come up.
All right, I think we should try to find one that you don't know. Right, lampwork glass beads. Thinks about it for a bit. There's a lampwork bead market.
Yep.
There's the lampwork tips and techniques and questions group.
But that's not a selling
the glass bead jewelry making supplies for sale.
And then these are people's individual pages, but they're not seeing that on there.
Oh, right. Sorry. Boom. So, But yeah, right off the top, Lampwork Bead Market. Is this a place that you sell your stuff?
I'm a member, but I haven't actually sold through there. But you can see there's 18,000 members.
Mm-hmm.
They have 10 plus posts a day. Let's see. So Lampwork Swap and Sell. I'm not a member of that. D-Stash. This is a group that I often buy unavailable glass colors. They can't see me pointing at it. But anyway.
No, they can't. They can't see my mouse. Oh, because I haven't highlighted. There we go. All right, so I can point at things, and I'll point at things on your behalf, Honey Pie.
Okay.
Although, again, the people listening can't see. So pretend you are talking to somebody on the phone when you're doing this.
Okay, so then the Lampwork glass beads and enameled components, artisan Lampwork beads and components for sale. So yeah, you would just find these kinds of groups in whatever your craft is.
But you have chosen one that obviously there's a lot of heat for. Pick another craft.
Pottery.
Pottery.
I mean, like mugs or something.
Craft. Let's see what we get.
For sale or something.
Eco Pottery Craft, Crafty Fun Group, Craft Supplies, Harry Potter. Of course, we're going to get a lot of Harry Potter stuff. Let's see. Or no, you said pottery for sale, right? Do that.
Or how about handmade mugs for sale?
All righty. Handmade. Come on, computer. Oh, there we go. Handmade mugs for sale. Crafts Pierce County, make, sell, buy. Vintage buy and sell. Of course, are these
there was handmade items for sale
worldwide.
Marketplace items for sale. But this is not marketplace. These are just private groups.
Mm-hmm. Crafter sale. All right, so let's England. Since I'm guessing Shonks is in England.
Well, actually, there's some Lampwork groups that I'm involved in that are worldwide or just America too.
Mm-hmm.
So
buy, sell, handmade in the UK.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, okay. So apparently there's a bunch of them. So, and that's not a hint you'll get on Make It at Market.
Nope.
At least they haven't given that hint yet.
Nope. I couldn't believe it that this was going on.
Well, no. I mean, the thing is, how did you even discover it?
Friends.
And they said, "Have you done this yet?" And you said, "No, I haven't," because you now do like a sale on these things once every 2 or 3 months, and you do almost as much business as the low end of doing the conventions.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, which is
nice,
which we don't have to go there,
and
you
I
don't
can
have
do
to.
it in my jammies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So there's some advice from a seasoned pro, Shonks, and more questions, sir. Alrighty, next up, Jen's words of wisdom.
Right. So this I thought was pretty good because I am feeling exceptionally cluttered at the moment.
Okay.
So clutter is the physical manifestation of unmade decisions fueled by procrastination.
Says Christina Scalise.
Yep.
So you got to make some decisions?
Yes, and
Been
stop
procrastinating?
procrastinating.
All right.
I mean, we have so much stuff from your mom's house that has just
Yeah.
been sitting in a room for, 6 months
Yeah,
now?
we
and it's just, it's again overhead in my brain.
I mean, when Mom passed on and we were clearing out her stuff, I would say probably, 60-70% of the stuff
Just went
went
to
to
shops.
Goodwill charity shops. And I kept arguing, 100% of this stuff should go. Just like, no, we might use this, or you might have that, or this or that or the other. And so we literally have an entire room from floor to ceiling of stuff.
It's not floor to ceiling, but
Feels like it.
We've probably got about 20 boxes of stuff that is useful, that will be useful if I
But it could be useful for people in a charity shop too.
Yes, I know.
Anyway, that was my decision, but I was overruled.
Well,
so,
we got rid of 80% of the stuff.
That's a start. That is true. Okay, so that was Jen's words of wisdom, and now the moment Jen's been waiting for, doggos. We have a bunch of dogs this week. Honey,
Goody.
Lola, or Bubba as we call her, is our 6-year-old American Staffordshire Terrier. She was born deaf, had a rough start, but we adopted her just before her 2nd birthday. She is now the happiest, most loving girl. Sawyer, her almost 3-year-old brother, was a street dog in Puerto Rico before we adopted him around 5 months. He's a true mutt, pit bull, German shepherd, Doberman, chow, husky, poodle. He's scared of just about everything, but has become the sweetest scaredity boy. Alrighty, so let's see if you can spot which is which, Lola or Bubba, and
Lola is the staff.
Sawyer. Alrighty.
Oh, she's beautiful.
Yep, she's a sweetie.
Oh.
Whoa.
I love that he's got like ear tufts.
That is
What
like a
that?
dog that was created by artificial intelligence.
Yes, it's an
That is a
AI dog.
Mid-Journey dog, where that is all dogs. The computer just
Look
throws
at
them all
his
together.
mane too under his chin. He's got
Wow.
like a big ruff.
Yep.
How cute is
That
he?
is a far out. Yeah, all the weird tufts and geez Louise.
That is.
And I mean, the ears come down here, but then there's all this stuff that should be the ears.
Yeah.
That is far out. I'm sorry for folks who can't see it. You can go to rnr.rahdo.com the next time you use your computer, and you will find this episode, and you can just skip right to the end and look at, bask in the I don't know what to say of Sawyer.
The hairy glory.
The glory of Sawyer.
Hairy glory.
The furry glory of Sawyer. Okay.
Tufty glory.
Tufty glory. Alrighty, next up, Priscilla says, who was that who said all this? It was, I'm sorry, I didn't copy and paste. Sometimes I mess up with copy and pasting, but thank you. Those are some awesome pictures.
And Lola is so
Bubba
sweet.
is a sweetie pie too. Oh, what a pair. Okay. Next up, Priscilla says, we adopted a new dog at the end of October. Her name is Magnolia. She is a cutie patootie. She's some burn scars on her from someone pouring hot liquid on her when she was a puppy, but she has no issues. She doesn't even remember it happened. Yep, dogs live in the now. Next up to her is Sister Penny. All righty. Oh, my. Okay.
What a sweetie.
Yep, and you can see the scars, but she doesn't care.
Well, and maybe we can just say that she was in the wrong place at the wrong time and somebody dropped a teapot on her or something by accident.
Yeah, maybe. One would hope.
Let's-
And Penny, Gert and Daisy do this all the time, lying on top of each other.
Well, no, Daisy does that
Daisy
all the
does
time.
all the lying on top of Gert, it's true.
Very
Look at that.
cute.
Yep, cutie patootie indeed. Look at that face. And look at that Ewok. Alrighty. Ryan says, Sammy is a black and silver German Shepherd, and Maynard is a boxer Great Dane. They're both two-ish. Alrighty, Sammy and Maynard.
I thought you said they're both Jewish.
Two-ish.
Two-ish.
Yep, they could be Jewish. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wow,
What a
that is a
beautiful color.
beautiful, striking dog. Which one? That must be the Great Dane. Black and silver
German
Great
Shepherd.
Dane. Yeah, look at that.
Black and silver German Shepherd.
Yeah, that's it.
Or-
And Maynard is a boxer Great Dane
Yes,
mix.
but that's not a Great Dane.
I know. So I've never seen
No, a white shepherd like that.
A white German Shepherd. That is, he is awesome. And
I do love a spotty dog.
yep, that is a very high res picture. That's a dog fancy cover picture. And is he deaf? It says deaf. I deaf. I'm not quite sure. DEA. It looks like on the collar.
I don't know.
Right. That's right. And Shonks is back one more time.
Gosh, look at how high the dew claws are on her.
Oh my. Yes. My wife is on the first steps of transitioning from full-time. All right. Oops. Oh shoot. That was a bad or copy and paste. This is the important thing. Morgan is back in the Halloween costume. Morgan was rolled out last month for the first time.
Beautiful.
Then a pic of her new sweater. If it matches her coat, I have nothing to do with it. My wife gets 100% of the credit. Honestly, I was against putting clothes on her at first. I think a dog's preferred state is au naturel, but she loves her clothes. First time I took the sweater off, she picked it up in her teeth, shoved it in my lap, and huffed at me until I put it back on. She's bossy, but in a cute way. Wow, that's...
Yeah, that's very...
Why would a dog want to be clothed?
Well, maybe they're cold.
I guess. Yeah, I mean,
Especially
she doesn't have much fur. It's true.
Short-haired dog like that.
Yep. Alrighty, and Jen, that was so interesting about them being nanny dogs because she treats my son like her own puppy and watches over him. Anytime he makes loud noises or sound like he's in pain, she races over to him. She doesn't do much after that, given her limitations in speech and hand department, but the sounds of her hauling butt through the house definitely tips my wife off anytime there's an issue. And anytime we're walking, she always keeps an eye on him and makes sure to stand between him and new people. No growling or aggression, just concern.
Yep.
That's a good dog.
Yes.
Alrighty. And that's it. We had no spoiler questions. So, folks, we are out of here. That was an excellent haul of pictures. By all means, please send dog pictures and stories to questions@rahdo.com with more questions as always. And thanks as always, folks, for hopefully you enjoyed the show. And we'll be back again next month after Jen gets back from Thailand. So if you have any Thailand questions, you know where to send them. Thailand. I got it right. I keep saying Singapore, but it's Thailand.
Yep.
Okay. So, that's it, folks. Have a very, very nice day. Talk to you later. So long.
Bye-bye.
Bye.